please.
Carlson.
Here.
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 Citro. Vieira. Miranda.
Here.
And Maniscalco.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
All right. Item number 20.
Good afternoon, Councilman. I appreciate the time to talk about 20 and 21, which is the Rome Yard project. So today, can we bring up the presentation, please?
All right.
So just wanted to open with the slide to give everybody kind of an awareness of the scale of this project, as well as where it is in relation to West Tampa and how close it is to downtown, and it's directly adjacent to the MLK Center. In the lower corner, you'll see kind of just a graphic of what the overall plan is, and the team is here to talk about that in more detail. So this project started about 2 years ago. The administration decided to put this back out and to do a holistic approach of doing development here. So we decided it to be a mixed income, mixed use development, and with a strong engagement with our community. So the RFP was issued in October of 2020. We received 6 responses, and we interviewed the top 3. And out of that selection process, Related Urban Development Group was selected. We began negotiations in the spring of 21, and we've just completed those in the first portion. So today we're going to have consideration of 2 different agreements, a land disposition agreement and a community benefits agreement. So just a quick overview of the agreements. The proposal that was submitted had 2 forms of dispositions. They have a 99-year ground lease and a for sale home townhomes portion. And then the RFP was required a community benefits agreement, and this will be the first official one that we have. And that includes all public engagement through the entire process. It covers all the benefits from the physical amenities to the less tangible ones. And I'll start with the land disposition agreement. The proposal offered a 99-year ground lease for the majority of the property, and has a townhomes portion of it that has to be conveyed fee simple. The project's going to be done in 5 phases. It'll take about 6 years to get completed. And we have 360 days to complete the next 3 items before we can continue. And those 3 items are zoning of the property, negotiation of a master infrastructure and Riverwalk improvements agreement, which is part of the build grant, and then a phasing and timing plan for the project. Those will all come before you in the near future. Next we have, as item 21, is the community benefits agreement. This was required by the RFP and have it all in the CBA. We engaged the neighborhoods, including the West Tampa CAC. Those engagement meetings were required to be done before we wrote this document, so we had all the right things in it. And then it contains commitments for those physical improvements, as well as the affordability commitments, the local hiring commitments, the minority participation, and the workforce development commitments. So those are the overview of the 2 documents that are before you for items 20 and 21. I do want to say that we met recently with the West Tampa CAC as recent as last week on the 12th. They asked for some last-minute changes, which were all positive and helpful, and the developer and the city agreed to those. Some of those are characterized in this next slide.
Councilman, good. You had something, sir?
When I look at 20 and 21, it didn't strike me till last night. When I look at the boundary, when we say north of Spruce, I in my mind, I see the other school, I see the baseball field. Is that all included? Is the school system involved in this process here, or where are we?
There are adjacent property owners, and yes, they currently have a poor, correct. They are adjacent property owners, but they're not included in this deal.
Okay, because when I look at it, it says north of Spruce, so when I hear north of Spruce, Spruce runs right down the middle there, so when it says that, and I look at your map, I'm just wondering, how does that come into play here, or?
Okay, so the 6-acre portion of the site is just north of Just Elementary, and the 12-acre site is just north of the MLK Center. Be happy to bring the map up if you
All
want.
right, so let's go, so we're saying that's behind.
It's north
You're
of
trying to
it.
tell me it's behind those adjacent properties?
Correct,
And you
yes.
say north of Spruce?
Yes, the schools are on Spruce, these are north of that.
Okay.
Councilman Carlson.
Can we have the presentation back up, please?
Are you want me to ask my
Well, I'll
question?
come back to the map at the beginning. So if you can see up here, the West River development is just to the south. They border to Spruce on the south. The schools are just on the north. The baseball fields that are the 6-acre portion that are just north of Just Elementary. And then the old water site that's there is all utilities. That is the other 12
But the
acres.
baseball field is city property, correct?
Correct.
That's a part of this
Those-
deal.
Yeah, so what's highlighted in red on here is those 18 acres.
Okay.
Those are all city-owned properties.
All right, and my final question too, since there's no deal with the school district, that's not a part of our deal, just want
That's
to make
not
sure
part
on the
of
record.
this.
All right, secondly, when I put that community business agreement for CRAs, on the record, is the West Tampa, CAC, that community that's satisfied with what they want to see a part of this project for the CRA?
Yes, and we've met with them 3 different times, and they'll be included throughout the process. And as I was mentioning a moment ago, we met with them just as a matter of fact last Tuesday, previous week.
Because I don't want anybody to come
And
back
so
and
this-
say, I want to
so
make
this-
sure on the record, I don't want to come and say, well, we do it in the park, all that can happen. So you said we've met, they're happy now, they got what they want, or apparently what they want for this project.
Correct,
All right.
yes.
Councilman
So that
Carlson.
brings me to my last slide, which is we brought you a substitute set of agreements that included those last-minute changes. And I'd like to outline what those are for you, if you don't mind.
Councilman Carlson, did you have anything you want to wait?
Can I just ask a quick question before you get to that? I asked you this yesterday, and maybe it's a question for you in legal. You answered a little bit yesterday, but also just for the public's sake, if you all could answer this. As I remember, the mayor had a press conference on like March 17th a year ago, so a little over a year ago, to announce the awarding of this RFP. But in a year and 2 weeks, or a year and a month, this is the first time that city council has voted on this, right?
Correct.
And is there no requirement in the law that the city council has to approve the awarding of the RFP before we get to the contract stage?
Nicole Travis, Director, Administrative Development and Economic Opportunity. The answer to that, Councilman Carlson, is no. When we do the issuance of the RFP, we draft the RFP, and the way the process is laid out, an administrative decision is made based on whatever criteria is in the RFP, whatever ranking, whether it's professionals, and you have a professional staff that reviews that, ranks that, and then issues a notice of intent to award. Once we issue that notice of intent to award, we enter into negotiation with that top-ranked firm, and that's what we did with the Related Group, to come up with a development agreement or a disposition agreement that's before you today. So there's no action for the board. This is actually your part in the process. The previous part of the process is on the administrative side. This is now where this body gets to approve or consider the proposal.
Thank you. Yeah, it just seems that, maybe we can talk about this in new business, that there should be some interim step. There was a lot of controversy over the way this was awarded, lots of stories in the Times and other places, editorial, and it seems like, a lot of work has been done by a lot of great people in the last year, but it seems like it would have been a good idea to get some kind of interim approval from city council before we got to this point. And if the laws don't require it, maybe we can talk about whether we should do it or not. But from a public point of view, I think it would have been a better idea to have consensus before we got to this point, because there's still a lot of concerns in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Councilman Gibbs.
I think a lot of effort has been put into the project, and I can see that. But I said this many years ago in 2019 and 2020, I talked about the RFP process, and that's a process I think council eventually needs to look at. Maybe not today, but I think in the future, Mr. Carlson, right, that's something I think we need to look at, the overall council being part of that RFP process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
I would like for staff to finish with the presentation and then allow the developer to come up and do a presentation for council, and then we can take questions and talk about both different agreements, if that's all right with you.
All right,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Wonderful, thank you, Nicole. Again, Rob Rosner, Director of Economic Opportunity. The substitute documents include those items, which include including additional stakeholders in the CBA process, revised income restrictions for the townhomes, which were originally offered as not affordable, but they asked that if they could be affordable. So one of the items there is to increase that to 199% of AMI to allow that differentiation of the townhomes. And then the staff and the developer have agreed to these, and so we brought those forward, and those were sent to you earlier. And those revised documents include a new LDA, a new CBA, and the corresponding resolutions that go along with it. One of the items that's referenced by this is their proposal and their presentation, and we filed that with the city clerk's office, and we'd like to ask a motion to receive and file those as part of this consideration.
We have a motion to receive and file those documents. Motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like Mr. Rosser to explain about the townhome situation with the new agreement with the 190%, I believe it is.
199.
199%. Explain that and what happened with that so people can understand. We talk about affordability, we talk about a process.
Okay, during the RFP process, we had set certain goals for certain percentages of AMI for the different affordabilities. So we had a 50% AMI, an 80% AMI, 140% AMI, these different categories. So the townhomes were not required to be that. They offered that as an extra. They improved their proposal during the negotiation process. The West Tampa folks asked, well, if there's going to be this 15-year affordability, can it be for a different range instead of the normal 140? And so, since that wasn't a requirement and it was an extra, they thought that was a good idea. So the 199 would help cover those people that might be a pair of teachers that would, are living or working together and might miss the 140 AMI. So they wanted to have that range to give that to the neighbors and the people to buy in West Tampa.
Councilman Carlson.
Sorry, one more question while we have you up, Rob. This morning, I talked about the total value of this contract, and I don't have a copy of it in front of me, but what I remember is there's like a $2.5 million payment, and then after some criteria is hit, like another $2.5 million, and then it's 15% of rent, something like that. But you all must have done some projections over the 99 years of what you think the revenues are going to be to the city. Those numbers can change because we don't know what the rental rates and everything are going to be. But what's the estimated revenues to the city? By the way, I like the idea of a 99-year lease instead of selling it outright. I think that's a great idea, and I know Carol had pushed for it. But is this a $100 million project for this from the city revenue point of view, or 10 million? Any ballpark idea where we are?
So the initial, you want to go ahead? Okay, the initial offer was 2,500 a unit. We have 954 units. That's where 2.38 million was offered for this, and that would come in as each of the units come on. They would come up as a capitalized lease payment, so they'd pay that up front. We would get that over the course of the construction of the project. Then after that, those phases, they would have a net cash flow, and then we would get 12.5% of that. So very similar to like percentage rent for a restaurant. So the idea is that they would say, this is how much our expenses are, here's what we made in revenue, you get 12.5% of the difference.
So in comparing the RFPs, probably you did an estimate of what the cash flow to the city would be for the 12.5 million, and maybe a present value over 30 years or something.
So, Councilman Carlson, to answer your question, we did try to figure out what that projection is, but there's really no way for us to know what that net cash flow would be. And so that's why you have, in the memo that was sent, you have a write-up from the budget office trying to figure out what that cash value would be, and there's really no way for us to predict what that dollar amount would be. We don't know vacancy rates, we don't know the extent of what the market would be at that time, we don't know what loans, financing, we can't estimate what that net cash flow value would be to be able to attach the value to that. So in our memo, you'll see that there is a, there is something stated from the Budget, Revenue, and Finance Office to address that, but there's no number to that yet.
I mean, the developer must have their own cash flow projections. The private sector does and you could do like
Well, I'm sure they had to do a
standard deviation or
performa, I'm sure they did a performa in order for them to figure out whether the project is a viable one or not, and that's a question that you can ask the developer. Again, I would ask that if we can finish the presentation and then get into the
I'm not trying to be difficult, but, you know, we have a fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers, and there's a 99-year lease, and if we sold the property outright, we would know what the number is. And I understand that it's variable, but usually you have like best case, worst case, you know, some economist projecting it, and you wouldn't hold anybody to that, but you'd have some general idea what it would end up being.
The only thing I would add, I can't provide you any more definitive information, Councilman Carlson, but I can tell you in connection with the proposals that the city received, the 3 finalists, this was the only proposal where there was an offer to actually pay the city for the property or provide a lease payment. And also, this is the only proposal that came forward where they agreed not to seek financial assistance from the CRA for infrastructure improvements. So that weighed into the decision-making, so.
But nowhere, just to follow, nowhere in our budget department did not do any projections at all.
The budget department attempted to do a projection based on the information that we have. The information that we have is all speculation. It's based on a number of variables that we don't have at this time. However, in the RFP that is recorded with this project, you'll notice that the respondent related group has estimated over the life of the project about $154 million investment in the project. What their net cash flow is, we don't know, because there are a number of variables that are unknown to us right now that we can't mathematically put out that equation right now.
Mr. O'Hara, you're on.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Council. Dennis Rahero, Chief Financial Officer. I was just going to reiterate the comments that Ms. Travis said. There's just too many variables over a 99-year period. We don't have the expertise to give you, and that's why we put it under the fiscal impact statement.
All right, thank you. We'll continue with the presentation then.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to introduce Albert Milo, who's the president of Related Urban Development Group, to talk about the project and the CBA process that they went through as a group. Albert, would you like to come up and speak? Thank you. To advance the slides, you just push this button right here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Council. Albert Milo, I'm the president of Related Urban. We are the Affordable and Workforce Housing Division of the Related Group. I know many of you are familiar with different projects that our different divisions are building here in the city of Tampa. And we are also the developers in partnership with Tampa Housing Authority developing the West River public housing, what used to be the old Boulevard Homes, just a few blocks to the south of the Rome Yards development here today. And if you've had an opportunity to see that area and kind of what we've been able to accomplish to date, what used to be 800 units of public housing that was built in the 1930s is now fully transformed into, we've completed four of the buildings. Tampa Housing completed a 5th building. We're about to finish our 6th building, including the renovations of Mayor Bethune and all of the Boulevard, West River Boulevard properties. We just recently, even in this environment of escalating construction costs and rates that we keep hearing about, we just closed on the next 190 some odd units on the eastern block. So we continue to build out that project. That is a project that when we started our partnership with Tampa Housing, again, was 800 units of predominantly and strictly all public housing, all low income. Now as we build through, we were building a mixed income community. In addition to market rate, there's a market rate component that's getting ready to start in that area. There's a home ownership component that's part of West River. There's gonna be a big national grocery store that's coming to the corner of Main Street and North Boulevard there. So, you know, we're big promoters of mixed income. I heard a lot of talk earlier about, you know, the concerns of rising rents and, you know, what that means for families. I heard a little bit about, you know, touching on jobs and what opportunities there might be for folks coming out of the criminal justice system. So I will tell you that a couple of things of our proposal, and I think Mr. Massey said it right, that out of the proposals that you receive, everyone was saying we're not willing to have any type of share of revenues with the city. Actually, quite the contrary. They were all asking for resources from the city. Unlike ours, you know, we specialize in public-private partnerships. We've done in excess of $1.5 billion over the last 5-6 years. We have these type of partnerships throughout the state. And one of the big things that we do is we want to make sure that our public partner shares in the upside of our developments. And we do have a revenue share projection in there. That's why we proffered that. So in addition to a capitalized lease payment, which gets paid upfront at the financial closing of every deal, we proffered the 12.5 cash flow participation. The estimate is over $120 million over the build out of the phases and over the build out of the project. One of the reasons why, to your point, Councilman Carlson, why we proffer a land lease is because we want to make sure that as part of these public-private partnerships, the asset remains a public asset. So that's why rather than proposing a fee simple transaction to say, hey, we give you a check at closing and the city parts, we structure these deals as long-term leases and provide that revenue stream to our public partners. A couple of important points that I think that you heard a little bit about them before with some of our team members is the fact that we focus heavily on community engagement. We understand that we do have a lot of expertise. We do have a lot of financial capacity. We have, you know, the best design professionals always working with us. However, we understand that we can't just come and impose our will in these communities. It's got to be something that we do on a collaborative basis. That's why the RFP has been over a year, so it hasn't come to this council before. Why? Because we took that time along with your city staff to have those outreach meetings, to have that dialogue with the community, to understand some of their needs. And there may be things that we might have proposed that they liked. There might have been things that we proposed that they disliked. And as Rob mentioned, just as recently as last week, the community had some additional feedback. And that was a good point on the home ownership side. Though 140 is workforce, the question was, well, how about if you have two teachers, right? They're going to exceed that 140% of AMI level. So how do we address that? And that's why you saw that one of those changes as it relates to the home ownership component. So we have a mix of affordability in our proposal. We're proposing to finance these as 80-20 tax-exempt bond transactions. That's funding that's readily available as of right. We will be applying through the Hillsborough County HFA. We've financed many of those deals already at West River like that. So unlike some of the other affordable housing programs that are strictly lottery-based, our proposal is not based on that. You know, that's why we were able to offer a project that can move forward. Obviously, there's some steps that still need to happen, and zoning and the infrastructure agreement and those things that'll eventually come back to this council. But it's not contingent upon some type of lottery-based funding on that side. And again, it's a mixed income approach. Those tax-exempt bonds require 20% of the project to be set aside for 50% of air median income. So all phases will have a, 50% of AMI, which, is categorized as very low income. We have another 10% of the project that's going to be at 80% of air median income, which is, categorized under the low income category. We have 40% up to 140% on the, in that range between 80 and 140. That's that workforce bracket. And then we also want to have a 30% bracket, which is market rate unrestricted. And the benefit of that is that the fact that we're going to build a project and with all amenities and all of these different resources, that someone that is willing to pay, full market rate rents is saying, yeah, that's a community that I want to live in, but also it's the same type of unit with the same amenities and the same access for someone that's at the 50% of area median income spectrum. So it will address a lot of those concerns that I heard earlier today from the public as far as, hey, either my neighborhood is being gentrified and therefore now there's market forces at work that are pushing me out of my neighborhood, but I still want to remain here, or conversely, yes, you want to bring that progress, but you also want to be sensitive to the community and have that type of income diversity. So that's how we're able to make our projects feasible. That's an approach that we've applied many times in many municipalities throughout the state. So that is a big a benefit long-term, not just for the community, but also for our public partners. A lot of the community assets that we're building, you heard we're going to be building a cultural center. That's part of our agreement. We're going to be having a workforce training center as part of our redevelopment, along with numerous other amenities and activities, and Peter will touch a little bit upon those. But to your point, Councilman Goods, we are the first developer in Miami-Dade County to ever have proffered a community benefits agreement in one of our deals. And the reason why we did that is because we wanted to document that community engagement piece. And so how do we do that? Is after these sessions and after these meetings, we're able to address those, put that in writing, and that becomes our playbook as we execute these developments. We worked with your staff, and as they mentioned, it's not just the land disposition agreement. There's a community of benefits agreement attached to this piece, I'm glad to hear, like when you hear like Mr. Robinson say that for a long time this community has been asking for that we'll be able to now be once again the first development company to be able to work from a documented written community benefits agreement. And then a couple of other major points that I'd like to touch upon. Our local hiring piece, we've committed to 20% of local hiring as part of the development. Again, there was a lot of discussion earlier, and I know Councilman Vieira, you talked about the program to try to do an apprenticeship program to address folks coming out of the criminal justice system. I will tell you that's another initiative that we adopted first in our Liberty Square redevelopment in Miami-Dade County. Like other private companies at the time, when that happened about 5 years ago, we had our own sets of apprehensions, right? There's always a lot of potential, pitfalls on that. But I will tell you today that we made a concerted effort to hire, not just local hires, but to hire folks coming out of the criminal justice system. And probably that is the most impactful thing that we've been able to do as part of our redevelopment. Yes, we've built new housing, and yes, we've got people living in brand new, just like we're doing in West River, but the impact that we've been able to make with that outreach and that program has been substantial. So I want to applaud this council for having that, being proactive approach to think about those issues. I can tell you firsthand as a business owner that it works. It works. We've taken folks that probably would be back to the criminal justice system, and now they have not a job. It's not a job. It's a career, because they've learned the opportunity they've learned the trade now, and they're not just working in the project that we had. They've actually been permanently hired with subcontractors, and now they have a career for their future and to feed themselves long term. So those programs work. I can tell you that is something that you guys should continue to have the discussions about and push forward, and we will gladly also work alongside of you to help promote that. And then The other piece is contracts for small businesses. We committed to 40% of that to small, 40% of the value of our contracts to go to small and minority certified businesses. We know that small businesses and minority businesses hire locally. That's a proven fact. So we want to be sensitive to the community, right? You don't want to just, the worst thing you can have is these type of redevelopments where you're building and the neighborhood is kind of on the outside looking in, not participating in that rebuilding of their own community. So that's why we made that commitment. It probably exceeds anything that the city of Tampa has seen before in some of their contract metrics. We've had those commitments made before and we've exceeded them, and we're exceeding those also in West River. So I just thank you for the opportunity again to work alongside you as your private sector partner. And we know that we'll be able to bring the same type of success that we've had at West River alongside the city now in the Rome Yard development. So I'm going to turn over to Peter Van Warner, who is our development manager.
I want to ask Al a question. Again, I've been down to Miami, my family's down there, I know the Liberty City project, so I get it. For me, it's making sure that that community was a black community. It's no doubt. So for me, it's making sure that the opportunity is there to come back, be able to work. So do we have a system in play, do you already have a system in play, or the staff has a system in play to monitor and make sure that those minorities are getting a chance to be on those job sites, that council can be getting updates to know what is the percentage of people that are actually working on the project, to say we have actual people working on that project that look like me or Hispanic, and making sure that we are meeting those goals, so I don't hear calls, we ain't getting no work.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, when we talk about the retail on the business, making sure that how we know or what kind of goals are set, or what is the city boards make sure that we have people who are able to, who in that low income bracket, be able to maybe have a salon in that retail space, to be able to work there as well.
So excellent points, and twofold. We have monitoring provisions in the agreement, so we will be doing regular monitoring, reporting to the city, and that reporting will be brought forth through your normal channels to address some of these commitments. So that's in the agreement, I can tell you that. But on your second point, which is an excellent point, and I forgot to touch on it, we've agreed also to set aside 10% of our retail space for local area businesses, and that's another very important point that we've been able to address in some of our other redevelopments, because a lot of times you hear and you say, well, we have 50,000 square feet of retail, and that's great. That brings jobs and that brings economic development to the neighborhood. But what happens is it's also dependent upon how you break up that retail, right? Because if I have 50,000 square feet of retail and I have two tenants at 25,000, that's great. We're doing, we're bringing the Publix to West River, so that's a great thing for the area. But that doesn't necessarily address the issue that you just raised about having a local business have an opportunity to start their business. So we always want to focus on some of that piece and have what we call micro retail, because if we can break that up into smaller pieces, then it's an affordable rent that someone could, from the neighborhood, start their own business in a new space that's marketable and allows them to grow. So yes, that's another thing that's in our agreement, and I forgot to touch on it, so thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Albert. Appreciate you.
Councilman Citro.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving us this information, especially on diversity in affordable housing. No, come on back.
He's coming back. He's coming back.
Okay. But if we're going to have, however, if we're going to have this diversity in housing, we better have the diversity while construction is going on. Mm-hmm. And I applaud you on bringing in as many black-owned businesses, construction businesses, but I want to focus on the apprenticeship, which our Councilman Luis Vieira has championed. I'm hoping that you're going to make sure that it's state-approved apprenticeship, number one. Number two, and I'm hoping that within that apprenticeship program, you're going to have the WIMBYs, the black-owned, the minorities, in the same scale. within that apprenticeship program. And this is just an ask that I'm hoping will be achieved during this. If we're going to have diversity in housing, let's hope we're going to have diversity in the construction of that. I'd also like to point out in one of your PowerPoint presentations, you have a large number of electrical vehicle charging stations. Thank you.
Councilman Miranda, then Councilman Carlson.
You're gonna buy a bicycle.
And then
Councilman Maniscalco, may I answer just the questions, because otherwise I'm pulling out my pen to start keeping track of the
Sure.
questions. In the agreements that's before you, there are a couple of things. Councilman Goods brought up the reporting of minority participation and the set aside. Those are codified in the agreements that's before you. And Councilman Citro, as far as making sure that the apprenticeship program that you're talking about is codified in the agreements as well to comply with the city's apprenticeship program, and that's built into the agreement. And just to touch back, I think, on the beginning of Councilman Good's comments, in the agreement and the subsequent timing and phasing plan that will come back to council, there are milestones in the community benefits agreement that everything that's in that agreement, it doesn't happen all at the end of the project. They are incremental in order for them to move on to another part of their phase. There are different things in the community benefits agreements that they have to achieve and complete before moving on to the other phase. So we have built in those checks and balances throughout the project, and the timing and phasing plan will come back before council. I think I
And
covered
I'm
them
glad
all.
those are all in the contract, if I may, Mr. Chair, but I'm hoping that, looking right now, I can say, I'm hoping that these are going to be state-approved apprenticeship programs, and those apprentices will be spread out across the spectrum of diversity.
Yeah, so that's another excellent point. So I'll just, as I touched upon earlier, of some of when we introduced this program as for local hiring, especially for the folks coming out of the criminal justice system, a lot of times the program rules are not set up to help this population. Unintended consequences, but they are, was part of the process. I'll give you an example, because most of these individuals are unskilled. So in the case of HUD projects, you have these Davis-Bacon rules. So to make a long story short, because of some of those rules, we went and we got our own state certified by the State Department of Education apprenticeship program. So Related Urban has its own, so we can definitely work alongside, your program we've kind of cut our teeth, if you will, on some of the pitfalls of getting it approved, but we know what it takes to do it, and like I said before, it works. So it will definitely be state certified, because it's not just, it doesn't just have a on-the-job training piece. That's part of it, where they get their the income side. There's also a required classroom component. So at the end of a 3 to 4 year period, they have a certification. Again, that's why I say we don't reference this as a job. We reference this as a career.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Miranda, then
Thank you, Mr.
Carlson.
Chairman.
Vieira.
Just to put down what we discussed a little earlier, you're going to have total 954 units, right?
Yes, sir.
Of which 185 units are going to be at 50% AMI, and of which 94 units are going to be 80% of AMI, and of which 368 units, 100% 3MI. Out of that 954, that means you're going to have 647 of them under some form of AMI. You're going to have, 307 units left at market rate, I guess.
That's correct.
And along with that, you're going to have 29,000, almost 30,000 feet of commercial in the whole unit. And of that, you're going to have 3,761 feet with the West Tampa Culture Center. And you're going to have roughly 19,744 feet of some type of community benefit area. And along with that, you're going to have what Council was discussing, the the apprentice program, which is needed in many ways. And you're going to have, out of that, you're going to have really 307 units left at market rate. That's how I summed the program up. And if you look at page 16, 135, that talks about the river walk and so forth, another separate agreement that you're going to have with the city. Am I correct there?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. At that point, I reserve my time later.
Councilman Carlson, Councilman Vieira.
Yeah, thank you to you and your sister or brother companies for all the investment you've made in Tampa. You all have got a huge footprint in Tampa now in lots of different ways through all your different companies. So thank you for doing that. And also thank you for obviously the investment of time you made. Everything you're talking about now shows you spent a lot of time with the community. And you know, some developers walk in and kind of the community says bullies them into accepting whatever they propose. In this case, you spent a lot of time working with the community. So I think we all appreciate that. Thanks also to your colleagues for investing in the arts. I know you invest in the arts wherever you go, and you haven't mentioned that yet, but there's a great Botero on Bayshore Boulevard now that everybody thanks you for.
Yeah.
And I know there's more to come. I just had a clarifying question. On the, was it 128 million you mentioned? That's the capital investment you're going to make, or that's the 12.5% over 99 years?
That's the 12.5%. The capital investment is gonna exceed $400 million. You know, at the time of the RFP, it was 390 million. Obviously,
Okay.
costs have increased a lot, so it's probably gonna be in excess, probably at this point, in excess of 500 million in economic development and construction costs. But over the life of the project, the 12.5% cash flow component is gonna probably exceed $120 million.
Okay, great.
Once the project is all built out.
Thank you. I appreciate you throwing out that number. And thanks, it sounds like from the other RPs, you were the only one that offered that, so that will help the city to have money to do other things. Are there any property tax exemptions included in this, or are you all going to be paying property tax on the entire investment?
Yeah, well, that's just cash flow participation in the
No, I mean on the-
property taxes is in addition to.
No, yeah, so in the $400 million investment, we don't know what the property value will be worth, but are you guys going to pay ad valorem on the entire property, or are there certain
Yeah, I
areas that
mean,
will be exempt?
In a typical ground lease scenario, the ground.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry.
It will be exempt because it's
Okay.
still gonna be
I
a
got it.
government asset, right? So,
Yeah,
but there will
sorry, I
be some
forgot.
valuation on that.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to echo also what some of my colleagues said in terms of just how happy and content the city is to be partnering up with Related and all your brother and sister groups and organizations. You know, the vision that you put forward, I think it really speaks to the economic anxiety and dislocation that we have seen in Tampa, in Florida, throughout much of the United States over the last few years. Starting with COVID and in the aftermath of COVID, we're seeing you know, numbers locally and in Florida and throughout the country that really formulate what I call an attack on those who want to stay in the middle class, an attack on those who are working hard every day to get their families into the middle class and into the working class, et cetera. Whether it's inflation, it's 8% nationally, about 10, 11% here in the Tampa area, 27% increase in rent in Tampa Bay over the last year, gas prices at $4 or $5 a gallon. You know, working families are finding harder and harder to get by, but the real center of that is housing. You know, when we say that housing is a right, I always tell people that's not some radical political slogan. I always say that comes right out of George Bailey and It's a Wonderful Life. The Bailey Building alone that worked to say that, look, that if you work hard and you're raising a family and you're going to do the right thing and get up every day and go to work and do that punch clock and go 9 to 5 and come home to raise your kids every day, then you deserve a good house in a safe neighborhood where you can raise your family. And this project does that not only for those who are working hard to get into the middle class, working class people, lower income folks who are working hard every day and taking those hits, but to our middle class as well, for working class people. We ask a lot in the city of Tampa, why don't our police officers and firefighters live in the city of Tampa? Well, you know why? Because they can't afford it. Right. You start off earning $50,000, $60,000. Good luck living in the city of Tampa, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse. If you earn $75,000, right, your household does. I was talking yesterday to the apartment folks. They're saying that the average apartment is going for, I think it is 2-bedroom, about $1,800. It's about 30% of your gross income before taxes, before child care, before health care, and before God knows what. So, you know, those numbers really come together to form, again, an attack on those who want to stay in the middle class, an attack on those who are fighting hard to get into the middle class. And it's something that also I think speaks to the Tampa experience. Y'all have do a lot of work in Miami. I have family in Miami, you know, we in a way like Miami, we're a city of immigrants. We're a city of refugees. And I think about my family when we came here. My dad came to Tampa in 1960 from Cuba. My mom came to Miami in 1960, and we had nothing. We had nothing, but it was programs and efforts, either through the private sector, things in the Catholic Church, or through state and local and federal government, combined with our hard work, that would meet us halfway there to get us to where we're at today. So I guess my summary is that projects like this are such wonderful public-private sector partnerships that help people achieve the American dream. And we are a city of the American dream. So I think to me, that's kind of where I see this project on a larger level. So just wanted to thank you for all your work and your presentation. Thank you.
Peter?
If there's any other questions, and then I do want to introduce Peter, who's our development manager
Okay.
for us, and has been handling all of the, lives here in the area and has been handling all of the community engagement process and stuff, and is handling the West River project too. So,
Go ahead,
say
sir.
a couple words.
Good afternoon, my name is Peter Van Warner, I'm local here. I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity. I wanted to ask you all, why do developers get a bad rap? It's because, in my opinion, they just don't care. Either they don't care, they come in, they develop, raise what was there, ignore the history, ignore the people, ignore the community. I can tell you wholeheartedly, I care. It starts with Albert caring. That's why I work with this company, and our entire team cares. We've reached out to the community, multiple community outreach events. They wanted a cigar tower, observation tower with brick to be indicative of the old historical cigar towers in West Tampa. We have a cigar tower. We care about the environment. We're doing LEED silver. All my architects at West River hate me because I'm making them redesign over all the old oak trees. We really, really care. I think you'll see that's very present. I'd invite any of you to come out, visit West River. I know you've been there, Councilman Goods. The look on these residents' faces when they walk back into some of their units, completely redone, it's priceless. That's why I work with this company. I can tell you with all my heart, we really, really care. We put together a team that really cares. And I know the community is ready for this, and we're ready for it, so we appreciate the support.
Councilman Good, yes, sir.
You know, I was there for the ribbon cutting of one of the buildings. I tell you, it was very impressive, gentlemen. I mean, you don't have to go carry your clothes, walk down to the laundromat. And that's a big deal in communities, you know, going to the laundromat. We don't think about that. You can't tell what apartment is what because they all look so nice. So it's good to go to a place that a person feels, I don't know how much you make, I don't know how much you make, but we got the same amenities per se, and we're all living in a place that's nice and comfortable. So I applaud you for that. You know, I'm glad that when you talk about the state apprentice programs, and I'm glad you have a program that mirrors that as well, because a lot of times people can't meet that threshold either. So it's like with anything, you got to have a filler for each kind of project, you could say. So I'm glad that you have that filler to where we'll be able to get people on the job and be able to get them trained and have a skill at the end of the day. So I'm glad that we have a secondary program that can also help and make sure those people know that community and others, outliers, can be able to be a part of the project, be able to eat, and be able to provide a shelter for themselves, because when you don't have shelter, that's when you have issues and problems in communities, when you don't have a place to stay. So I'm glad that you're doing that. Again, I would appreciate that.
Thank you very much, sir. And I think you've covered all the bases, or most of the bases. The biggest crisis that we're facing is housing affordability, and you're coming in not at 50 units. You're coming in at different levels that accommodate different incomes. And we are in such demand right now, and people want to live within the city, and this is in the center or centrally located. And they live with dignity, because I know the products that you put out and construct, they're high quality. The efforts that you put into community outreach, listening to what the community needs. You're not coming in and gentrifying, and like you said, why do developers get a bad rap? Because they come in and they do what they want, and that's at least a perception to a lot of people. But you're coming in with care. You're coming in looking at the details, listening to the people, listening to the public. And, Councilmember Good said it, you go out there and you're impressed. Councilman Vieira talked about his family coming here from Cuba, coming with nothing. The same story with my mother and my grandparents, came from Cuba 60 years ago with nothing, and because they were afforded certain opportunities and whatever and whatnot, they built themselves up. Tampa's growing, you know, Miami's a different story. I get anxiety getting off I-95 going into downtown, because here, at least I can pull into downtown and find a parking space. There, you know, I don't know. But last time I was in Miami, I was there for 2 hours, and I turned around and came back. So, I did what I had to do, but.
So next time, just give me a call and I'll give you a tour to make sure your anxiety level is okay.
Yeah, no, but, you know, I think it's a worthy project. You know, I know the area well. I drive through there all the time. I have my whole life. You know, if this doesn't go through, then what is going to take its place? I understand how the RFP was done, how the bid was done, why you were chosen, how CRA dollars were not asked for. You came in and put, you know, your investment and whatnot. I like that it's a 99-year lease. I'm young, but I'm not going to be living to see the end of that lease. But 99-year lease where it is a true public-private partnership, because it will be and will stay government-owned land while, you know, you're generating your income because you're here to make money too and everything. But at the same time, we retain ownership. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's a almost 1,000 residential units, 954, and 687 will be income restricted. And we have a backlog of individuals, a lot of people that are looking for housing, different incomes, everything is expensive, and you're offering that close to everything, to the amenities that people want, along the river, near the Riverwalk, near downtown, on and on and on. So I applaud you for that.
No, I just listened to all the stories, and all of us have basically the same background. Everyone in this audience today comes from somewhere that was nowhere 50, 100 years ago. So all of us somehow got to the point. And I was fortunate that I was raised in the condominiums before the word was invented. I come from Tampa Housing Authority. So I considered a condominium, the word wasn't invented at that time. But it was nice. I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of kids to play with. And I had a mother and father that taught me right from wrong. Or I make believe I knew all that. But I would say, yes, don't worry about it. I was an E student. And my mother told me, what is this about? I said, excelente, mama, excelente. And she thought I was a genius. But I'm just telling you, thank you very much for what you're doing. It's a wonderful life, and Tampa's a wonderful place to be in, and that's what it's all about. We want to thank you. I do anyway, and I'm sure the board, I don't know how they're going to vote, but of all the three that were the finalists, yours was far and above the one that sat down and offered amenities that none of the others wanted even to take. So I appreciate you very much.
Councilman Carlson?
Just another clarifying question, and maybe Morris or somebody legal could answer this. I haven't studied this issue, but I know that the property appraisers have gone back and forth with leases on public land, like in the airport port, about whether people have to pay property tax when they have long-term leases. Do you know what the law specifically says about a city leasing property?
Yes.
With improvements on it?
The only only the state and county are really exempt from property taxes for non-governmental uses. So even if the city, for instance, we have a jewelry shop in the police department building. Taxes have to be paid on that.
So they are going to pay property
So they
tax.
will pay
Okay,
property taxes. That's
Okay.
correct.
All right, good, thank you.
If there's no other further question, would anybody like to
I'll move the
resolution?
substitute
Can I
resolution.
Substitute resolution?
Can I make a motion? Can I say one thing first, please?
Yes, sir.
This was, I believe that this was improperly noticed this morning, that it was put on the consent agenda. And because it was on the it's a $120 million contract plus another $5 million or so. But the public did not have a proper chance to review this or look at it. You all, my colleagues will remember a few months ago, we approved the Hannah Avenue project, which we thought in good faith was going to go forward with no problems. 2 weeks later, the public came before us and said that had they been aware of it, they would have come back and given us some feedback. And that resulted in us trying to revoke the contract or rescind the contract. And then we had all kinds of legal problems. Once we approved this, it's a done deal. We can't undo it. My suggestion and my motion would be that we continue the vote on this until May 19th to give the public one more chance to give us feedback before we approve it again.
Councilmember Citro and Councilmember.
So I made a motion. I made a motion to continue the vote on this until May 19th to give the public a second chance to give public feedback on it. 20 and 21, yes.
Do we have a second?
let me ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Before I get into deep of this. Ms. Carlson, you're saying that this was not properly noticed to the public?
It was not noticed as a regular agenda item rather than a consent agenda item. A consent agenda item should be less than $3 million. This is about $125 million plus or minus contract. It should have been on a separate section. Had it been in the section that requires large items, it's possible more people in the public would have shown up. We saw in the Hannah Avenue case that we thought we had complete information, but 2 weeks later, the public came to us and said that there were all kinds of concerns about it. And so my suggestion is not to vote against this, but to just continue the vote on it for a couple weeks, just so we give one more chance for the public to show up. If nobody shows up, then we vote on it and move forward.
Councilman Good.
Mr. Shelby, are we in compliance or are we out of compliance for this board to move forward with a vote today?
You're in compliance. This meeting was properly noticed. It was on the agenda. The backup material, such as it is, was available. And you do have the opportunity to vote. Councilmember Carlson is correct, and that did come up recently with a couple of items that I've heard from the public about, that once pursuant to the charter, you authorize the mayor to sign the contract, and the mayor signs the contract, it is then the contract that controls. The city council does not have jurisdiction, let's say, over the matter to reconsider it. So with regard to anything that's on the consent docket that requires the mayor seeking your approval by resolution, once you give it, then once that contract is signed, you are effectively, I guess the word would be, stopped from being able for city council to do anything.
So this has gone on for.
I'm sorry.
This has gone on for more than a year of discussion since the RFP was approved, even though we didn't approve it. But it seems to me that it doesn't hurt anything to wait 2 more weeks to see if the public has any more feedback on it, because I think most people in the public aren't even aware that we were voting on this today. There's been no media coverage of it.
A couple of things I'd like to respond. First of all, it was on the agenda, it was noticed, it was properly noticed, so you all can act on it today legally, in my opinion, and I think Mr. Shelby supports that. Relative to whether it should have been under the staff reports initially or not, typically, under one of your motions, if the city is paying more than $3 million, it's supposed to be under staff reports. Part of the issue here is we're not paying anything, we're receiving money, and it was hard to estimate what that amount was, frankly. Frankly, the staff, the administration itself, decided to pull it off of the consent agenda, so it would be put under staff reports so you could have a more robust discussion about the matter. So that was done by the administration, so I did want to point that out. There are, and I know you had public comment this morning, relative to Councilman Carlson's point, I think there are a couple of individuals, citizens that would like to address you all, so if you wanted to waive the rules to allow them to address.
Can we get a motion to waive the rules? Mr. Edwards is here. Motion from Councilman Citro, second from Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Mr. Edwards.
Thank you very much, Council. I watched the meeting this morning, and the indication appeared to be that we will be able to speak this afternoon. I think
Your name, sir?
Robert Pete Edwards. I think it's a good idea to continue this. They need to rework some of the agreement. Let me give you a perspective of it. If you remember, in the previous administration, they had talked about the West End project. They had even talked about opening up Willow all the way to the river. But they had denied all the way to the end that the previous administration had took the lead over the school board responsibility to sell all the schools off the river. Then it finally came out, it was verified in the Tampa Bay Times and the Tampa Tribune. Now, when you look at this agreement this afternoon, it talks about the boundaries, which include the schools north of the river. But I find it interesting, and the city attorney, he kind of threw everybody for a loop when he talked about the schools were by another government and all. So I asked a lawyer friend of mine to tell me what would stop the city from, if they entered an agreement with the school board and the county, to expand to cover the schools if they were a change of property or whatever. Would they have to come back to the public and get another resolution or what have you? And then the question I have, I'd like to know, have they had any discussion with the other two government entities so we won't be embarrassed like we were the last time to find out that we had the previous administration, and it's on record that they finally admitted that they were trying to negotiate to sell all 3 schools off the river without telling anybody, including school board members. So I'd like for the city attorney to ask, I'd like to ask them and the developers, have you all had any discussion with the local governments to expand this agreement where it's a conveyance or a transfer of property without coming back? Now, that's a legitimate question.
Mr.
That's
Massey,
a
do you have a
legitimate
response,
question.
sir?
And second of all, if you had a discussion, or if you were to have a later discussion, would council be in a position to control, or once they vote on the resolution today, you come back and say a party to legal, we can do whatever we want to now because of the boundaries?
I'll be happy to address both of those. This agreement applies only to the city-owned property. It does not include any of the schools. There's been no discussion about including the schools in this agreement. It applies solely to the city-owned property. And if there's any future agreement that would involve the schools in the vicinity of this project, that would have to come back before this body for approval. It cannot be done unilaterally without the coming forward before this body.
Well, then they need to change the agreement to reflect that at no such time does this inclusive of other government entities that are north of Spruce.
Thank you very
That's
much.
the right way to do it.
The agreement is solely between the developer and the city, so we cannot bind other governmental bodies without their approval. That was a general description of the area. The legal description that is attached to the document and which is controlling is the legal description of the property that the city owns only.
Thank you
You're
very
trying to
much.
establish trust and all, so why wouldn't they do that just in the best interest of uniting this community and moving forward? I'm not against the project. The question I have is the way they did it under the previous administration. A lot of you councilmen didn't know about it. They denied it. I was tipped off about it. They denied it to the end, to the last meeting when we had to figure out what we were going to do with Riverfront Park. So if you don't have nothing to hide, just put it in there, and then your goal is to make sure that this community goes forward. As the new mayor said, we don't need the legal jargon why you can't do it. How about doing it in the common spirit and common sense?
Thank you very much. Councilman Goose.
I guess this will go to Ms. Travis and Albert. Are we in a time crunch? I need to know that because if 2 weeks to delay to just make sure, we've had so much chaos with other projects recently. I don't want to be able to be in a position to where I like the project and I got to sit back and wait so much, I would rather, if we need to do what we need to do to make sure everything's open and transparent, then let's do that, then we move on with the vote. But are we in a time restraint? Well, 2 weeks hurt us that much that we can't make sure we do it the right way.
Let me answer that question for you. The answer is yes, 2 weeks will hurt. And let me give you a perfect example. If you go to your phones right now and you Google the 10-year Treasury bill in March, you're gonna see that the 10-year Treasury has moved over 100 basis points, which directly affects interest rates. If you look at it in April, you're gonna see that it's moved more than half a point. So that's an unprecedented increase in rates. And for anyone to think that rates don't have a direct correlation to impacting projects is naive. So the answer is absolutely yes, time is of the essence. You heard from the public earlier about rent increases. Interest rates continue to rise, construction costs continue to rise, so definitely time is of the essence.
Mr. Massey, to Mr. Edwards' question as to his point, could that be accomplished what he's talking about, or again, is it back to your point where you just can't do that?
I can tell you without equivocation that this agreement applies solely to the city-owned property. It does not include the schools, and if there's going to be any agreement that affects the schools adjacent or nearby to this project, it has to come before this body. We cannot bind the school board, we cannot bind Hillsborough County, we can't bind any other governmental entity or any other entity who's not a party to the agreement. The sole parties to this agreement are RUDG LLC in the city of Tampa, and the legal description attached to the agreements, both agreements, are the property that is owned in fee by the city of Tampa, no other property. And I'll swear on a stack of
Councilman
Bibles.
Miranda, yes, sir.
They can't bond us. It's two-way street. No government can bond another government without knowledge of anybody, period, one way or the other. And it's, I'm not the smartest guy, or nor the sharpest knife on the drawer, but I'm not waiting another day. I know what money costs, I know what things cost, I know what a 2x4 used to cost 2 years ago, and I know what it costs now. And it's 10 times the amount almost. But it just, I'm not using that as an excuse. This was on the agenda, whether it was on page 5 or page 6, it was there. Whether it was in one area or the other area, this council had a vote on it, no matter which area it was in, whether in A, B, or C. So let's clear that out. We got elected to vote. If they want to say I did something wrong, come see me. That's the FBI, the CIA, anybody come see me. Because I'm not afraid, because I've done nothing wrong. So let me clear that out also. I've never got a contribution nor asked for a contribution from anybody here. Never. And I don't intend to ever to do that. So I'm not doing it for anything in my benefit. I'm born alone, I die alone, and I'm going to vote alone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I have my motion's on the floor. Can we just record whether I got a second or not?
Is there a second to the motion to continue this item to May 19th? Is there a second now?
Bill, I'm gonna give you the second. I don't think it'll go anywhere, but as a courtesy to my colleague, I'll give you a second.
We have a second on the
And may I-
motion.
May I comment on it if I may, because since we're going to vote, may I, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, number one, this was noticed. I've known about this for a significant amount of time, as long as I think everyone else has. And if there is, because, you know, Hannah was brought up, if there is something that is known, right, then we should probably say it here today. In other words, if we're saying, oh, well, we don't want another similar issue to come up like Hannah, if there is something that's known, we should all know about it right here today, to the extent that they are. I just think, and again, and I appreciate and respect Councilman Carlson's motion, but I think it would probably be bad form for us to have everyone here, have the presentation and go, hey, listen, let's wait another 2 weeks because there was a bad experience some time ago. I just respectfully can't support that, and I do mean respectfully. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion?
No, roll call, please.
Roll call.
Vieira,
No.
Citro,
No.
Miranda,
No.
Hurtak,
No.
Carlson,
Yes.
Gould, and Maniscalco.
No.
Motion failed with Maniscalco, Vieira, Citro, Miranda, Hurtak, and Gould voting no.
Councilman Citro has moved the substitute resolution.
That
which
was
he
in my
did-
committee. I'd like to move it.
You'd like to move it, Councilman
please.
Miranda? Yes, sir. Go
Chairman, I
ahead.
move item number 20, the
Substitute.
substitute motion, and do you want me to read it?
No, you don't have.
I don't
no,
have
no,
to,
that's
but I
part of
just
the-
want to
that's
make
part of
sure
the-
that everything is crossed. So I just moved the resolution for item number 20.
Second.
We have a second from Councilman Citro, Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I just let everybody know, the project sounds great. I'm voting against it because I think the public needs more time to, it'll probably be a 6-1 vote, but I think the public needs more time to weigh in, and we need more time to surface this after a year and 2 weeks or a year and a month of working on this project. I think that we should have had 2 more weeks to look at it, and the public should have been noticed in a more transparent and accountable way. And it didn't happen, and so I'm just going to vote no for that reason, not because I'm against the project.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Goode.
I understand Mr. Carlson's point. I respect that. I'm going to vote yes on the project. But I think going forward, this council needs to look at the RFP process, the notice process, and maybe council needs to change the process so we don't go down these roads anymore. We're starting to get some large projects now. Publics are asking questions, so I think for transparency in the future, we need to look at making some motion, Mr. Carlson, to maybe change the process going forward. But I will vote on the project for today.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I will agree. It sounds that we need a better process for notifying these larger projects that have a lot of interest from the public. But I do understand where everyone's coming from and how long this project has been worked on, and I understand the money seriousness. It does sound like a good project, but I am concerned that the public didn't get as much of a voice as they might have. So we'll see what happens, but it sounds like a great project.
Thank you very much. And the bid was chosen, you were chosen for the reasons we've already talked about. I think you went above and beyond the other bidders. I think you went above and beyond the community outreach. Just the numbers in itself of what's affordable and what's market rate, especially in this climate where we're looking for affordable, where every day that conversation is lack thereof affordable housing. You're in the center of the city, the amenities, the quality of construction, the quality of life. People will be living in dignity. I can go on and on and on. So I'm going to be happy to support the project. We have a motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Citro. Roll call.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
No.
and Maniscalco.
Yes, and
Mo-
Councilman Miranda, would you like to read the
Let-
substitute for 21 as well?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
We-
finish the vote. Motion carried with Carlson voting no.
Okay,
Chairman,
Councilman Miranda.
item number 21, the substitute net file is 22-74-053.
Second.
And the substitute on the substitute motion for that file, I move that resolution.
We have a motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Citro. Roll call.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes,
just
sir.
say, although I would have voted also to continue this one, since the first one was approved, I'll go ahead and vote yes on this one. Thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
and Maniscalco.
Yes.
Chairman, I would like to
Motion
take the
carried
vote.
unanimously.
The vote again on 20. I believe in my own, I did not say the file number, and I want the record to be 100%, so I'd like to re-vote on item number 20.
If that's your wish, you have a, go ahead, sir.
I would like to read file on number 20, which is file number F22-74004. I move the substitute resolution on item number 20.
Second.
Second from Councilman Citro. Roll call.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
No.
and Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried with Carlson voting no.
Thank you very much. That's it. Item number 41.
Thank
We
you.
already opened the public, no. Move to open the 1:30 public
So
hearing,
moved,
which is
Chairman.
item 41. Motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item number 41. You need a recess or anything? No? No? Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Good afternoon, City Council. Kamaria Pettis-Malco from the City Attorney's Office. Item number 41 is before you for a petition for review for the property located at 5710 North Miami Avenue. The petitioner filed a review for a special use application that was requesting for an accessory dwelling unit. Staff denied the application request on January 24th of 2022 on the basis that the application did not meet the criteria set forth in Code Section 27-132. Members of City Council, you were just provided copies of the relevant code sections, which is Code Sections 27-132, 27-129, and 27-30. I also provided the sample motions and the rules of procedure for this review hearing. The standard of review for the petition for review this afternoon is governed by Code Section 27-61, subsection J, subsection 3. That section means that City Council conducts a de novo standard of review, which means that you can accept testimony, public comment, and make your decision to determine whether or not the applicant or the petitioner meets the relevant code sections for this application. Staff who is going to present the staff's finding and the reasoning for the staff's decision is Laura Marley. After you conduct, collect all the evidence in this case, City Council can take a couple of actions. You can affirm the decision of the zoning administrator and deny the special use application, or you can overturn the decision of the zoning administrator and thereby grant the special use application. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Ms. Marley.
Good afternoon, Laura Marley, Development Coordination. I have not been sworn in.
Please raise your right hand, we'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
And can I share my screen, please?
Mr. Shelby?
Oh, and counsel, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to make sure that council received and filed any ex parte communication subject to Florida statutes 286-0115, and if there's any verbal ex parte communications, please disclose them now.
Anything?
Okay. Receive and file.
Motion to receive and file? Motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye.
Needs to be sworn.
And can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. This application was Special Use 12204. The property address is 5710 North Miami Avenue. The request was an accessory dwelling unit. This is the overall area located in Seminole Heights. This is the subject property looking from Miami. And this is the accessory structure looking from East Henry Avenue. And this is a photo or an aerial from East Henry Avenue. This is a single family, and this is the accessory structure in question. And these are the code requirements for an accessory dwelling unit. The applicant is going to meet all of them with the exception of C, which an accessory dwelling unit may be designed to be located within a single family dwelling with a separate entrance or in a conforming accessory structure. However, it may not be located in a non-conforming accessory structure or structure made conforming as a result of a variance. The proposed accessory structure will be located in an existing accessory structure that does not meet the minimum required setbacks as required by code and therefore non-conforming. A side street setback of 3 feet and a rear setback of 3 feet is required. The existing accessory structure does not comply with either requirement, and the request is a 0-foot setback for the street and rear setbacks. And here is the survey of the property, the existing single family and the existing accessory structure. As you can see that they are on the property line on Henry and on the property line, which is considered the rear. The required is 3 feet. They're pretty much 0 feet. And that concludes my presentation.
Any questions? No? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Were you sworn in?
Just now.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna load it.
And please state your name.
Jamie Mayer, representing the applicant from the law firm Hill Ward Henderson. My address is 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 3700 in Tampa, and I have been sworn. I'm just gonna switch over to PC to show a PowerPoint. I think the computer's locked, maybe. It looks like a login screen, sorry. I also have a paper version if that's easier.
Oh, gosh. Well, you did it under, over here.
Should be,
Yes.
there it is. Thank you. Sorry, everybody, I appreciate your patience. Okay. So this is a request for, as staff correctly explained, it's a request for a waiver to a single criterion in the special use for accessory dwelling units set of criteria. specifically to allow an accessory dwelling unit in a non-conforming structure. By way of background, the applicants live in the home, the primary home structure, and it was built in the 1920s. The accessory structure was built in the 1930s, and the overall neighborhood was platted also in the early 1900s. I believe 1913 was the date on the plat. It is common in this neighborhood, within a stone's throw. I'll show you a few pictures later of aerials for accessory structures and kind of tucked in the corner of a rear or side yard. And many of these structures were also built around the times that the homes were built, and this is often in the 20s and 30s when the area was platted or shortly after it was platted. And a lot of these types of structures have minimal to 0-foot setbacks, which today are non-conforming to the residential zoning code. It's also pretty common for these structures to be used as some form of an accessory dwelling unit in these neighborhoods. So the special use 1 permit, as you all are familiar, is it's an administrative process, so it goes through staff review. There's no public hearing, but staff does not have the authority to grant waivers from those criteria. Only City Council has that authority. So staff, even though it meets all the other code, as staff explained, staff had to deny the application because one of those criteria was not met. And this petition for review venue allows the possibility for you all to grant a waiver of that particular criterion. And as staff explained, it's a 3-foot difference. The modern day setback requirement for accessory structures is 3 feet, whether it's on the rear or the side. In this case, it's both. It's 0 feet here. We're really flush with those setbacks. We are not aware of any opposition. We certainly haven't received any opposition, and we have received support letters from many of the adjacent and surrounding owners, and I'll show you a little map of those people, and the letters were submitted as part of the petition for review package as well. You saw the site plan just a moment ago, and here it is in context of the aerial structure. You can see an alley runs along the west, kind of buffering that structure from the adjacent property to the west, yeah. And then to the north is Henry Avenue. The right-of-way, there's a paved portion and an unimproved portion that kind of is an additional buffer in the north. The photo you saw earlier was a little older. They've cleaned it up. But this is really just kind of on the ground to give you context of that alley, and also that this is the area, if you were standing on Henry, you see the unimproved portion of Henry. So there's a lot of, yard space. It just doesn't belong to them, but there is kind of a buffer around this, this structure. So again, the special use criteria. This dwelling unit, or this accessory dwelling unit, is less than 950 square feet. I believe it's about 815. The main residence is owner occupied. It's their homestead. It's a non-conforming structure. This is a justifiable waiver from this particular criteria that would otherwise prohibit use of a non-conforming structure. This particular criteria does not recognize kind of what's going on in Tampa's older neighborhoods, especially where so many of these structures exist. This type of use is very common, and it's unnecessarily restrictive to disallow use of existing building stock when so many people want to use it for accessory dwelling units and when it meets all other code criteria. So it doesn't really reflect the reality and the desirability to be using these as a form of housing. The applicants are prepared to comply with the number of occupant limitation, and a safeguard of this process is that the permit is reviewed annually by staff if granted, and if conditions change, if it became some kind of a negative impact, it would come before you all again to reassess. The general standards for all special use 1 criteria permits, there can't be a negative impact to health, safety, and welfare. Again, this is a common use in the neighborhood at large. It's an existing structure. There are those buffer areas that I showed you. It complies with all other applicable code regulations and standards. It's compatible with the neighborhood for the reasons I explained. It's a very common type of structure, and it's also a common type of use. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's residential use in a residential district. It's reusing existing building stock, and it's promoting a variety of housing choices. And for all these same reasons, it's not promoting a potential for a precedent of incompatible uses in the area. As I mentioned earlier, this is kind of within a stone's throw of the subject site. A lot of these little accessory structures in the rear yards, of course, I don't have surveys on all of these, but visibly they appear to be very close, if not flush, with many of the the lot boundaries. And
I don't know if these all have special permits or, you know, if they're non-conforming, because again, I don't have the information, I don't have their surveys or their permits, but these are just kind of an example of the types of structures you see in the surrounding area where they're using these, they're cleaning them up, they're using them as accessory dwelling units, and a lot of these, as you can see, are flush with fence lines, so presumably they are similarly situated as you saw a lot of the aerials, the way these structures are. The blue pin drops are all support letters we received adjacent to the south, adjacent across the alley to the northwest, adjacent to the north across Henry, across the street, and one lot to the south. We haven't received objections. I don't know if there's anybody here to speak today. So in sum, we're requesting a waiver from a single criterion that doesn't really reflect the actual patterns of development, especially in these older neighborhoods. We're reusing building stock. This request otherwise satisfies all applicable code, and it's a structure and a use type that's common in the area. So we respectfully request City Council's approval, and I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Councilman Citro.
Thank you very much. How long has this structure been there?
1930.
Since 1930.
Since 1930. Thank you very much. What brought on this case? Did someone call code enforcement or anybody about this?
So what happened was, unfortunately, this is a case study in bad permitting advice. The applicants, one of their parents wanted to refurbish this into an accessory dwelling unit for them to live in 6 months out of the year and then recoup costs by renting it out. And they've seen a lot of their neighbors do it. They hired a permitting agent. I personally have not worked with the person because they hired us after they realized they needed a special use permit. They were not aware of the process, got flagged, they talked to staff. We've been in contact with code enforcement. Ms. Savino is the attorney who we've been working with, and they know where we are in the process. It's kind of in abeyance while we go through this process. So that's where we are. And yeah, it was unfortunate that they didn't know in advance that they had to make this application.
So were they renting to a family member or
No,
somebody?
they're not renting it yet. Like, it's not, they were going through the process, pulling the permits, and it got flagged during the process of renovating it. So it was kind of a shack.
Before it was tagged, what was it used for?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I know they weren't renting it. It was kind of run down, and they recently moved into the house like a couple years ago. So.
Who are they planning on renting it to? I don't have to be
Oh,
specific.
the parents.
Will it be a family member or?
Parents about 6 months out of the year, and otherwise, I suppose whoever was in the market. And they're not here today, and they wanted to be here. Their daughter has COVID. I apologize that they're not here because they could better answer some of these questions for you. Some of these more specific questions, but it's not an extended family residence. That's a different type of special use. It's an accessory dwelling unit, so it could be rented to conceivably anybody,
So
as long as it's only 2 people.
It wouldn't literally be a mother-in-law suite.
In effect, 6 months out of the year, yes, but it's not. We're not going through that particular. There is a different special use.
Thank you.
Channel for that.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to be in any way harm or harmful for you or your client or anyone else, but Mr. Citro's question, I find it very interesting that someone's going to live there 6 months, and then they're going to ask them to leave, to move the parents in for 6 months, and that doesn't work. I mean, let's be realistic.
Well, correct. Likely it's more of a
said,
B&B, I think.
And I don't believe it. I'm not calling you anything but truthful, but I don't believe it, because no one's going to have something for 6 months, move them out, and move the parents in. The parents leave, finds another tenant, and that's going to rotate every year.
I believe it's going to be more of a short-term rental, which is permitted. So you're correct. That would be very strange, and it would not be realistic. But I think it's more of a way for them to have the flexibility for the parents to come down when they want.
And this property is homesteaded or not?
Yes, they've been here for
So it's
2
all
years.
homesteaded, and they've never rented the place?
No, they had to
Does
renovate.
it have a kitchen in the inside?
Yes, it's now. It's, I mean, that's part of the permit pulling.
Then they'll lose their homestead, I think, in my feeling. If they have a kitchen in there,
No.
unless it's for family members, if you're gonna rent it, guess what? Then your taxes go up much different. Your taxes become a business.
Well, you're permitted to have an accessory dwelling unit and also live in your house. So.
For family members.
No, that's a different, respectfully, that's called an extended family residence. It's a different channel under code, and you're not allowed to rent that out to a non-family member. Make no mistake, we're not asking for that, and we're not trying to get that through secretly. We're asking for an accessory dwelling unit, which is permitted to be rented to the public at large. That's what we're asking for. It is a different series of permits, and it's a different standard. I personally have done the extended family residence application before, and it is different. You're not allowed to.
One more question. The dots that you showed us that have dwelling units, do you know those are empty or full or relatives or not?
I don't know.
Does anyone know that?
No, sir.
Kamaria Pettis-Knuckle from the City Attorney's Office. No, Councilman Moran, I don't know that information. I don't know if staff is aware if those units are occupied or not. And I don't believe the petitioners provided that information either.
Unfortunately, I would have no way of knowing that. I will say one of those we got permitted. Don't know if it's currently being used. I just know it went through the same process. So I know it's on the market for being rented. There's listings for it.
If I may, council members, I just wanted to be able, I don't know if, are you done with your presentation?
Yes, I'm.
Okay. I just wanted to bring to council members' attention a couple of things that were brought up during the presentation. The other properties that may be surrounding the property in question that's asking for this special use, there is no information about whether or not those accessory dwelling, those structures are permitted or when they were established, and quite frankly, they were done before the zoning provision changed. And I just want the council members to be aware of that just because other properties in that area have also structures in the rear does not mean that it was permitted, and there has been no information provided from the petitioner that they were permitted accessory structures in the rear. Just because they're back there doesn't mean that other properties have it, doesn't mean that this petitioner, the same property owner, should have the same thing.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Just a minute. Thank you. Thank you. Council Abby Feely, Director of Development and Growth Management for the city. Just would like to clarify some of the discussion that's happening up here this morning. As you know, or this afternoon, we're continually facing our crisis of affordable housing and housing units. And what I hear the discussion taking place today is on extended family residences versus ADUs, which are accessory dwelling units. Those are two different products. They are both special uses. What's before you this morning on this case is that this is a request for an accessory dwelling unit. The criteria does not allow for those to be placed in non-conforming structures. That the special use one, which is administrative, went to the zoning department. They denied it because special use one have those specific criteria. If you don't meet it, we cannot approve it. It comes to you on appeal, that's where it is today, to ask you for permission to use that non-conforming structure for this use. And that is what is before you. So getting into the kitchens and this is an allowed accessory dwelling, which allows for a kitchen. It allows for it to be rented. So it is different from an extended family residence, but I just want to be on the record clarifying what's before you today. Sorry about that, Laura.
Councilman Seeker.
And thank you, Ms. Feely. I always enjoy your input, and I always learn when you give us your input. However, I was looking for a different subject when I asked who was going to be living there, whether or not it's going to be rented to a family member or not. Again, we are able to have leases in this area, city of Tampa. I'm just the type of person that likes to see extended leases instead of short-term.
Understood.
That's the reason why I was asking the question. I would have given consideration, special consideration. He said, oh yeah, my mother-in-law is going to rent it. She's planning on living her golden life here. All right, that's cool.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, Ms. Feely.
Do we have anybody in the public that wishes to speak on this item? Anybody registered?
No one is registered.
Wait, any rebuttal?
I appreciate Ms. Feely's input, and that is correct. It is, what we're asking for is we're not trying to sneak through an extended family residence, because we would have gone that route if that was the only thing they wanted to do with it. They do want to rent it out, but their parents also want the flexibility to stay there because, it's nice to be able to do that. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a rental unit. So that's, we respectfully request and certainly also to clarify, I said on the record as I was showing you, I don't have the surveys for those other properties. I don't have any record of their special use permit. It's just kind of an example of what the surrounding area looks like and what is frequently going on in the neighborhood and where they got the idea, frankly. So we respectfully request your consideration of this waiver, and I think it does promote, it helps with an issue that we have in the city, and a lot of people want to be here, so thank you.
We have a motion to close from Councilman Goods. Second? Yes, sir.
Before, I'm not opposed to somebody having a rental unit. I know that in that area, there's a way of doing it where you can have a family member in there. They do check once a year. They check and that, I'm all fine with that. But once they say it's a rental unit, that causes a lot of questions to me. In West Tampa alone, I can tell you that in a very small area, and it wasn't so much accessory units as they expanded the house, connected to the house. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 families living in the house in the back. And in fact, one of the ladies last Thursday night come to me and asked me if I could find her a place because she's renting an apartment inside of a house. So, and what happens there is this, and I'm not saying this is in this case, please don't take that. They pay no ad valorem tax other than homestead tax, which they shouldn't. They pay no income tax because they end up reporting it to the government. So most of them, I would say 95% of those that I've seen are paying nothing. Nothing to the school board, nothing to the county, and nothing to the city. And those are millions of dollars in a small area that I can tell you that's happening right under our nose, and we do nothing. That's all I want to say.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Not in your case, please.
No,
This is not about your case.
It's kind of strange to me. I saw it, Mr. Chairman. I mean, 6 months and then they're gone in 6 months. I mean, we're talking about a housing crisis, but you know, it's just kind of odd for me right now. But all right, Mr. Chairman, I move to close.
Motion from Councilman Goods to close. We have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? What is the pleasure of council? Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to overturn just to see what happens, unless somebody else wants to make the other motion.
Any specifics to the motion?
I'd like to make a motion to overturn the zoning administrator's denial of special use 1 application SU 12204 for the property located at 5710 North Miami Avenue because the general standards set forth in section 27-132 and 27-129 should be waived.
Mr. Carlton, and I would appreciate, I agree with you. However, when I look at a criminology aspect of blue lots, and we haven't done anything with them either, then why should I pick a 1 when there's 7 right next? And I agree with you, sir, I really do. But what am I tell myself now, I'm gonna vote against 1, and there's 7 other blue dots and we don't know what's going on? So there's 8 speeders, do I catch just 1 or all 8? I don't know what to do now.
Does this fail for lack of a second?
Oh, I second. Yeah, he seconded, it's each seconded, and I agree with you. I just, if I'm gonna go on 1, what happened to the other ones? I'm asking anybody, give me some help.
If this,
Can we have that discussion just after we vote? Because I'd like to hear your advice.
Yes, sir.
If I can, if this is a discussion on the motion and it forms the basis for your decision, I think it's important to be part of the record if you have a position as to any facts, additional facts you feel are appropriate.
But if you're talking about systemic solutions for this problem, that maybe we could talk about under new business or something. And
Sure. We have a motion from yes, ma'am.
Oh, no, Travis and Ms. Felix jumping up.
Oh.
I don't know if they have a question.
Well,
Open the hearing?
We're real.
What?
The hearing is closed, the question is.
Jump up, do you have something you want to say? Are we open? Yeah, I guess not.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I think that Councilman Miranda is correct that this is an issue that we need to discuss, but from my understanding, we're having a workshop on ADUs coming up soon, and I think that goes along with that. But with what's going on in housing now, we do need to find more ways to allow housing, and this would be allowable. It wouldn't even be here if it hadn't been set back incorrectly, or not incorrectly, but just, different from what our current zoning is. But I don't disagree with you. I think we need to have that discussion because we need to find all of those hidden units and bring them on. And I think we can do that, but this, to me, is talking about doing it legally, getting all the waivers, getting everything they need, and using a property the way they're allowed to use it. It just doesn't happen to be in the correct, in the location that the city would normally allow.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I'm hearing all conversations, and I've heard conversations about this in the past. Again, to Councilman Miranda's point, why are we picking out one when there's 8 others? What was the reason why code enforcement was called on this one? This is a 6-month rental. Of course, I want to know, are they going to get certificates? What's going to happen? What's going to happen to the other part of the one? These are just questions that I have inside my head. I want more affordable housing, but I want the records to be clear on who has what, how it's being rented, and so that's going to be a topic of discussion. So I just have doubts about this one.
Well,
that's where I'm at.
I understand what I've said, and if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is the only one that's in front of me, though.
That's right.
The others are not. I just brought that up to open the scope of the, instead of looking through a narrow hole in the wall, I want to look through a big telescope so I can see it all.
And again, Mr. Chairman, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, I just point to the criteria that you have been provided with, specifically Section 27-132 and Section 27-129. And again, you are presented with this particular set of facts, and this is the petition that you have before you today.
We have a motion from Councilmember Carlson with a second from Councilmember Vieira. Roll call.
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Citro?
Very reluctantly, yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, we go to staff reports, and under that, I believe, item number 29, because of the amount at $4.4 million, we had that put under, pulled, there's a substitute resolution on it. What?
No, I just caught the clerk just caught a typographical error.
For which one?
For something we passed previously, I'll correct it on the
Okay.
new business.
All right. Anybody here for item number 29? Yeah, did,
He said it was moved because of the dollar amount.
no, this is the addendum. Did we pass 29? Yes. Okay, so that's already said. Okay, so I have the addendum. Okay, well, that'll be a presentation later on, so, yep. Okay, there's no administration update. Item number 44, this is Tampa Union Station Coffee Shop / Incubator Proposal. Rob Rosner, and, okay, yes,
They've
sir.
given us a report and a presentation, and thank you to them for doing that. My concern, which I expressed during the CRA meeting, is just that this is being pushed way out in the future, and the reason is that the Friends of Tampa Union Station and the city in conversations have decided to seek grants for the additional $1.5 million. And so I spoke to Ms. Travis, and I would like to make a motion to ask the city staff and CRA staff to work on an agreement between the CRA, the city, and if necessary, Friends of Tampa Union Station, to have the CRA fund the additional 1.5 million subject to reimbursement by the city or Friends of Tampa Union Station with any grant funds received. That way, I don't know if you all saw the letter to the editor in the paper today, but the mayor's making the argument, the same argument was made a little while ago, which is that the cost of construction is going up, and the estimates that we've gotten with Tampa Union Station are gonna go up if we delay this, and they would like to move right away. And so if we are able to provide the funds, we'll have to vote on it again in CRA also, but if we provide these funds immediately, they can do the renovation and the building at the same time, which will save money, not only in cost, but also by doing both at the same time. And then we'll still be able to get reimbursed.
Motion from Councilmember Carlson, second from Councilmember Miranda. Discussion, Councilmember Citro.
Thank you very much. I am for this, but has CRA put any money into this so far?
I think it was $1 million.
We voted on.
It was $1 million,
hang
it was
on.
$1 million,
I will let you-
excuse me, it was $1 million, we discussed that earlier this week, there was $1 million put in the budget, that item is still there, I think it's like at 976,000 because there were some, I don't know, study or something that was done, but there is $1 million there in the budget right now.
And this is another 1.5 on top of that.
That, what Mr. Carlson is asking for is a 1.5 to advance the remediation and repair of the building, in advance of grant, if we get grant funds. That would just mean that if we don't get grant funds, the CRA would be putting in that money without reimbursement, but we could still seek that along the way.
And the 900,000 plus was from Weiss Ebor, CRA 1.
You're asking me questions that I don't know how the answer to, but I know that Rob Rosner does.
You can ask. Downtown CRA.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it goes up Nuncio and all the way up to the Gasworks project.
I
So
stand
yes,
corrected.
that's right there, yes.
Okay, thank you. Again, that has already been a line item in the budget.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very
And
much.
it's there,
Thank you,
yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Councilman Carlson has a motion, second from Councilman Miranda. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sure.
Yes, please.
Well, how much time do you want? May, there's a regular meeting, May.
Just for clarification, you're asking for the CRA board to
For
allocate addition.
For staff to
additional-
come back with an agreement between CRA and city.
Okay,
so
to
that-
draft that agreement.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that, because the city-owned property, and then we'll have to vote on the agreement, that'll say that the CRA will upfront the money, but then the city will reimburse the
Sure.
CRA if we get grant
You're
funds.
just talking about the agreement. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure whatever time.
May 19th under staff reports.
Is that enough?
I don't know that I would have enough time to draft an agreement. I mean,
June 16th. That's almost 60 days out.
60 days for us to go to the CAC, get the agreement and come back?
So June 16th would be that day, then we go into summer break. How about July 14th?
That's fine.
That's
We'll
more
have
than
it done.
enough, but we have those, you know.
And if we
4th
get it
of
done
July.
before that, I'll bring it to you before that.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a motion from Councilmember, this is gonna be for July 14th under staff reports. Councilmember Carlson with the motion, second from Councilmember Miranda. Roll call.
Carlson,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Goode,
Yes.
and Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
So that'll cover all of 44, sir, you're satisfied?
Yeah, could we just talk about 47, since it's the same topic, similar topic?
About Union Station, sure. 47?
I also talked to Ms. Travis about this. This is for the World War II memorial, and I talked to Jackson McQuigg, he and his father once have helped save this station. But Jackson's also in the Atlanta History Center, and he said that they put up a World War II memorial at the Atlanta History Center, and one of the things they did is they set up a steering committee or advisory committee. I know setting up an official committee is complicated, but I wonder if this is, it would be great if Rob and Nye's department could be involved in this, but except for the fact that it's a city property, the CRA doesn't have to wait to get this done. The CRA could go through a process of deciding what the statute should be. we would go through city purchasing to hire an artist, and then that would come back to the CRA board. The only thing that you were really saying in your document is that we wouldn't want to put a statue inside the building while it's being renovated, but we don't know yet if it's even going to go inside. It could go outside in front, or it could go in back. And I think that process could go concurrently. If it happens that it's supposed to go inside and the renovation's not done, we could always put it somewhere, and then there's storage area there too that we could put it in. So my request would be, I'd like to make a motion to ask city staff to work with CRA staff and possibly the Public Art Committee or department to set up an ad hoc steering committee made up of World War II veterans to move this process forward right away.
When would you like that? July 14th as well, under staff, like a staff report?
And then give an update on July 14th also. That'd be great.
Is that plenty of time? I'm on the Arts Council board, and, I mean, we'll be meeting in between that, so.
Yes, so Osea Wynn, Administrator of Neighborhood and Community Affairs, and Arts and Cultural Affairs falls within my portfolio. And yes, we can definitely have something. We'll put both of them together and present at the same time with bringing together a committee to look at this.
One of the things that we talked about earlier is bringing also a timeline to just show the concurrent path for the art piece as well as the construction piece and the subsequent RFPs, just so that everyone can see the timeline and what things can happen concurrently to move this forward.
And Councilman Carlson, you wanted World War II veterans to be on the?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be exclusively World War II veterans, but that's what Jackson recommended.
I mean, I know a few, and one in particular, he's got to be 98, 97, and I think he was at Union Station because he did go to the Pacific towards the end of the war. His brother was stationed at Drew Field. He passed away, but I could reach out to a couple of people that I know that could tell you, as an eyewitness, we were at that train station. And
maybe you could tell Nicole as interim CRA person. But Gary Mormino also has interviewed the World War II veterans, so he would offer to participate.
We have a motion from Councilmember Carlson. Do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to item number 45, J.C. Hutchinson, and then we have Abby Feely. I see both here, so if you'd like to begin, Lewis. 45.
Good afternoon, Council. Abby Feely, Director of Development and Growth Management, and I do have J.C. Hutchinson with me this afternoon, the building official. Item number 45 on your agenda this afternoon is a motion that was from August 5th, and that was to report on the possible implementation of a process to audit buildings. We did come before you and discussed monitoring what was going to happen at the state legislature this session in relation to this matter. There were two Senate bills that looked at the potential of this, and neither of those bills made it through the legislature this session. So at this time, we're going to continue to recommend that we look at some other jurisdictions and the viability and enforcement of something potential, but just to continue to keep a pulse on what is going on at the state level in relation, because this would really be more of a building code matter than it would than at the local level. So that is where we are today. That's the memorandum we provided for you, an April 13th dated memo, and we're here for any questions you might have.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Carlson, you brought this forward, sir. Do you have any questions?
Yeah,
sir?
Commissioner Overman asked us to look at this. I think that she wanted something that was consistent with what she had proposed at the county. So do you know if we have that now, or?
We are not pursuing a building certification program here within the city at this time.
Because you don't think it's a good idea, or you're waiting for the state to do something? Or?
We've been watching what the state's been doing. There are other discussions that would need to be had in relationship to this. Some people are looking at buildings over 30 years in age. That would be anything constructed from 1992 forward at this time. And also the legal liability of putting into place a certification process that you then go out, you certify something, or you have another entity, certified engineering company or whatever, and they come back, they say something's wrong. You know, there's multiple facets to this program, and we really were waiting for that other direction. We're happy to look at some other municipalities. I don't believe that this has moved forward at the county either at this moment in time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Okay, next we're going to item number 46. If anyone here is for 46.
Good afternoon, Council. Sia Wynn, Administrator of Neighborhood and Community Affairs. And before I get started, Councilman Goods, my condolences. I was just at an event with Debbie last Wednesday. We sat next to each other, so it was very heart-wrenching to hear the news, so my condolences to you. I was asked to appear before council today on the possibility of creating a complaint registry for landlords. And if you recall that my team through code enforcement, we reported last October when we were asked to come and create a registry for landlord to realize what efficiencies that we could realize to improve the current program. If you recall, the rental certificate program is one where the landlords self-certify that and attest that their units comply with the minimum housing standards. But this is without an inspection from code enforcement. So what we did is that we assessed the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's Office to see what do they do for their landlords. We found out that they investigate, what they have is a program where they investigate the homestead exemption abuse through the complaints in an online process. And we brought back to you that we would do a number of things. We would get rid of the current program because it wasn't in fact inefficient. We would replace that program and implement a proactive process that randomly selects the rental properties for inspections. We get those lists of rentals of the business owners from the business tax office. In addition to that, we said that we would create an online portal process similar to that Hillsborough County, the property appraiser's officer has. And in that process that we will put a link on the code enforcement website. And that link will link to, will allow us to get those code complaints and those violations. And link to the state's website so that they can get violations as well. So I guess my questions to you is, we presented this information. We said that we will have the online process up and running before the next round of those certificates are sent. And we were looking at a June, July timeframe, and we're still on track with that. So my question to you is, what questions can I have that's different than what we've already presented and committed that what we were gonna already do?
Thank you very much. I know Councilman Goods or Councilwoman Hurtak, if either, which one wants to go first? Please. Thank you.
This is an issue that I think, I mean, it's already a big deal, but it's going to become much larger with this housing crisis we have. My concern is, how are we finding these, and I'm really thinking not even of the ones that are legal per se, but the ones that people have built out in their garage or things like that. What are we doing to find those and bringing them into compliance? Is that just going to be a code matter?
Yeah. So when we have when we get complaints, we have our code officers to go and investigate to see if there are any, or if they are legitimate or not. And if they're not, we do issue the code violations accordingly. We do not have a proactive process where we go through the neighborhoods and look for these situations. So they are complaint driven.
Okay.
Councilman Goods.
I guess I'm looking at another picture a little bit, because we talked a little bit about code enforcement and not having the authority to deal with those buildings that have 4 or 5 additions. I'm just wondering, throwing out there, because, you know, we have legislation, but I'm just wondering, if possible, we could probably meet with someone, with the state and see if we maybe can get some kind of mutual aid agreement to be able to do some stuff that obviously they don't have the staff to do or don't do. I'm just curious that, and maybe something we can look into, to see who we can get in touch with, and maybe get a partnership, that we can come in and be able to do some enforcement.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. Mr. Goose, we'll look into that issue. I understand the concern that's pending, major issues that have been brought forth, especially for the city. So we will work to see who we can coordinate with regarding that.
We need a motion on that, or you just gonna handle it and get back with us?
We will handle it.
All right.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
So, and thank you again for your presentation, all your hard work on this. So, you're looking at having the new system, or whatever you want to call it, up by what, June, July, you're thinking?
Yes, we had committed to having it to you by July, and definitely before we sent out the notifications. So the notifications will still go out. These are the ones that say that you have to certify, self-certify. But this year, they're saying you no longer have to self-certify, that this is the new process in place.
Okay.
That outlines what we discussed today.
Great. You know, maybe we could motion to have this come back to us in June or July for a summary and update of what's going to be given, and to look at additional options. I know that other cities and jurisdictions such as Broward and Gainesville have different ordinances that deal with this issue as well. But maybe we could just have this just come back to us in June. Does that sound?
June 16th?
May I make a
Yes,
recommendation? Since we're sending these out, excuse me, and we're starting a new process, I would like to bring back how that's working.
Sure.
So if we can just push it out maybe to August, we
That's-
can do June or July, but I would like to say, hey, the website is working, it's not working, these are some of the observations.
And that's a great idea, so we can see what's working, what's not working, and how we can build upon it, given the experiences of other, yes, sir, that would be great. And again, the reason this is so pivotal, I know a lot of us feel very passionate about it, is because we have a lot of communities, a lot of underserved communities in Tampa, in these large apartments where you go and you take a look at them, as many of us have done many, many times, whether it's Silver Oaks or Timber Falls or other different places. And it's just not habitable. It's terrible, and people don't know their rights. They're either their moral, equitable rights and dignity, or their legal rights, and whatnot. So I commend you guys for your work in this regard, and I motion for that to happen.
Motion to bring back an update, staff reports, August 25th. Second by Councilwoman Hurtak. Yes, sir, Councilman.
Do you think by that time you maybe have gotten some answers of yay and nay in reference to Mr. motion?
Yes, sir.
So I can add that to the motion.
Yes, sir.
All right, motion
Accepted.
from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilwoman Hurtak, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Okay. Item number 49, Councilmember Vieira's motion.
Oh, yes, noise ordinance, of course. And we've had a fine gentleman here waiting for a while from
Mr.
Channel
Larry.
7. Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. Nicole Travis, Administrator of Development and Economic Opportunity. Council members, you asked us to put together a public engagement plan in advancing the efforts to amend the noise ordinance. And what we're here to present to you today is a rough outline of our attempt to tackle this public engagement piece. What we're planning to do is schedule 2 public meetings, one in May and one in June, and separate them, one for residents and one for business owners. What I put on the overhead is just the same thing I'm talking to you about now. It's the 2 meetings, as well as there's a private citizen group, working group that would like to, that consists of both residential. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. This says the same thing here, but as far as the engagement in putting this meeting together, so we'll have 2 public meetings, one for business owners and one for residents, that we will hold in May and in June. Concurrently, there's a private citizens group that I know has reached out to a number of you that consists of, it's a developer that has put this group together, businesses and residential. We would invite them to those 2 public meetings that we're hosting. as well as they can concurrently go ahead to study the noise ordinance and develop some recommendations. We know that enforcement is a big part of this noise ordinance. We have been working closely with the Tampa Police Department and Captain Owen. They will be in attendance of of those meetings as well, and we will seek input to address outdoor amplified sound, separate standards for residential areas versus areas that have high concentration of commercial restaurants and bars, and what that mixed use may look like. We're also there's a lot of conflicts between those mixed use when you have residential on top of commercial. We're going to put that out there to see what the community says as well. And so I do have a request with this public engagement plan, is to request that council continue the May 28th workshop discussion regarding entertainment districts. We believe that with this, we can identify those high dense commercial areas as well as the mixed use areas. You have South Howard, our code does not identify any specific entertainment districts. So what we would like to do is take a look at Ybor area and really define, as a part of this outreach process, really identify where those high concentration areas are to make that request, and then present a scorecard with our findings at a future workshop, so that you can then take a look at areas that you may want to designate as entertainment districts as a part of this workshop. It's really not necessarily to continue, but to consolidate the effort in the area. The private citizen work group, again, will run concurrently and independently from our 2 public meetings, and we're requesting that we present our findings and recommendations, or that this private citizen group present their recommendations, and we'll present our findings from these public engagement meetings at an October 27, 2022 workshop.
Councilwoman Hurtak, and then Councilmember Goods, and then Citro.
While I think that it's a good effort and idea, I think one meeting for residents is not gonna cut it. This is a really, I mean, you're gonna have hundreds of people.
Well, in all fairness, we've had 5 public workshops before this.
Okay.
And so we had, so before I even was here, Councilwoman Hurtak, there were a series of public engagement meetings with the specific business districts and residents in the area. And I think there were a total of 5 public outreach meetings. Then there was a public workshop. We developed recommendations. Council then approved an ordinance that had those recommendations. They repealed it and wanted us to get back in. So there's been a certain level of outreach, and I could provide you minutes from those meetings and the notes as well. But that's why we were thinking of separating businesses and residents. And I do agree, this is a huge undertaking.
Well, and the only reason I suggest it is because of what you just mentioned. There have been meetings, but again, coming from the community side, people heard, it's being repealed, so everyone thinks, okay, we're starting from scratch. And I'm just letting you know that that's going to be the overlying feeling. And then I'm going to tell you right now, people are not going to think one meeting is going to be enough. So,
agreed.
I mean, good luck on that. But I would encourage more than one meeting.
I don't disagree. If you do desire additional public meetings, I'm going to ask you for more time than to report back in October. We can't staff the amount of meetings that we have concurrently with the other initiatives and things that we're doing public engagement on right now. And so I don't disagree, and we're not disagreeing to do more outreach. We just don't have any clear direction from council on which amendments you would like us to present to the residents and to the commercial business owners. And so this outreach is really to listen to them, take notes on what were the common themes, present that back to you at that October workshop. While we have the private citizen group, they will present recommendations. We've spoken to the developer that has organized that group and think that is a reasonable amount of time for them to have their meetings and present recommendations. And then we were thinking at the workshop, this would be a working session between staff and council, and based on what the findings are, you hear from the private group, we can develop recommendations together that we can then put in the ordinance to move forward.
Councilman Goods.
in theory, it sounds good. But in reality, that, I don't believe it's gonna work. I'll tell you why. You know, sometimes you have to spend money to get the results you really need. I think that your communications department needs to spend money to advertise TV and radio so people can know what's happening. I think that you need to have maybe an outsourced person to do this, or company to do this work.
To do the workshops?
To do this engagement.
Oh.
This noise ordinance is a big deal, big thing with the people. You just said that it's a big undertaking.
Mm-hmm.
So why undertake something that it could take longer to do versus just go ahead and spend the money, ask this council for the money it'll cost to engage the community as a whole, this whole city, as it deals with entertainment district, as it deals with enforcement, whatever, and let somebody else run to the ball and bring back the results to us, and then we go ahead and do what we need to do. But to just keep kicking it.
Well, in all fairness, we're not kicking the can down the road.
I understand, I just acknowledge, but people, the general perception of the public is, we keep putting it off. We've got to get some closure sooner versus than later, Mr.
I don't disagree, Councilman Goods, which is why we had recommendations and council approved an ordinance, and then this council repealed the ordinance. And so what I'm proposing to you, I think, is the quickest way for us to get some resolution. If we were to engage someone, I always accept help when we need help. But I also believe that the procurement and getting someone on board and doing that is gonna take longer than that. We've done, not we staff, this council has done a lot of legwork over the last year and a half on this issue through engagement. And we know the 5 issues that came back to council were common themes. There were the definitions that's in the ordinance. There are a lot of things, there are reoccurring themes. Enforcement was a big part, which is why we brought those 5 recommendations back. And so,
what are the number of people that are going to you've had these 5 engagements. Tell me the number of people that have gone to these meetings.
Councilman Goods, I will have to get a sign-up sheet. I came prepared to present to you an engagement plan that you asked us to do after the ordinance was repealed. That's what I'm here to. I can request that information.
I would ask, moving forward, that if you're gonna have 2 meetings, these 2 different meetings, that you make sure that some dollars are put to have real public engagement so you can really have the public there.
I think we absolutely have it in the budget for us to do, to extend our outreach just beyond Facebook, even if we did paid ads I think we definitely can push our outreach efforts, and I can report back to you what we did to enhance our outreach efforts. We definitely can absorb that and do that in the budget now with the plan that I'm proposing to you right now. My friend is here shoulder to shoulder with me and has been waiting patiently to speak.
Susan Johnson-Velez, Senior Assistant City Attorney. Council, I think what Ms. Travis is trying to explain is that if you recall, we went through a series of workshops and discussions with the prior amendments to the noise ordinance, and I think what we're trying to accomplish with the public engagement plan is to try to focus the discussion, not to create a wholesale rewrite of the noise ordinance amendments. That's not what we undertook last time, and that's not what council approved. So we're trying to really focus on the major areas of concern and try to do that through this public engagement process, and then come back and have a broad discussion with you at the October workshop, so that then council can provide us direction as to what you would like to see incorporated into an ordinance that we can then draft and bring back to you.
Councilmember Citro.
Thank you very much. The original ordinance was because I had heard from so many constituents that bars and restaurants were starting to encroach in the neighborhoods. You would have amplified sound coming out of a patio area where the patio was abutting some residents, and the music was going on until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I understand that. I was hoping that this ordinance would have a blanket effect throughout the whole city, and that we could then carve out sections that were classified as entertainment districts. Most people in the city of Tampa know where the entertainment districts are. Ybor City and parts of South Howard. Well, now we're having entertainment districts that people are perceiving North Franklin. However, we're having residents complain there. Armature Works is considered an entertainment district. However, there's residential all around it. So I'm glad you pointed out that yes, there are residential areas. There are entertainment districts. And now we're seeing the mixed use where people are saying, wait a second, I got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and this music is still blaring at 1 or 2 o'clock at night. So, again, this was well on its way before there was a change of heart. And you're correct, there was 2 different meetings with the public about this. We repealed it, that set us back, but I thank you for the hard work you're doing, and I'm looking forward to what you have found out.
Councilwoman Hurtak, Councilmember, no, Carlson.
One of the things I did professionally before I took this position was public engagement. So if you all want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it. But one of the things I would recommend is, because of the long timeline, let's proceed with what you have. But it's a multi-round thing. We've got to keep adapting it. And we've got a lot of consensus around some things, but that's why I voted to keep the last ordinance, because I wanted to do something, but we undid it. So we need to keep doing something. It doesn't mean that we're finished. We'll just keep working on it. And I think you should at least do it by district eventually, and maybe even sub-districts. Like in Orlando's district, he's got like parts of, I think, Tampa Heights, Seminole Heights, and then Ybor and East Tampa. So they're very different areas, and downtown, which are very different. And so I think each one has its own unique areas. The next thing is, please be careful with the term entertainment district. There's a motion that I made some time ago. It's coming up, I guess, to look at where we can put an entertainment district. There are areas where there's entertainment, but I wouldn't call any of them entertainment districts. And if my other office is in Ybor. I'm in Ybor every day, and I'm having conversations with leaders and other people in Ybor. And there is a group of people who run the dance clubs and nightclubs and we need that, and they're in some, and we need it in other places too. But just about anybody you ask in Ybor today, their vision for Ybor is not to be a quote-unquote entertainment district. That was a 90s vision. As Ms. Miranda said, Ybor has always had entertainment, but turning it into a late-night bar district, especially where there's shootings after 3 o'clock, which happened just last weekend again, is not the vision that people have for Ybor. And so and then as we get a few thousand more people moving into Ybor with all the new units coming online, the vision's gonna be completely different. And so I would just be sensitive. We want to not hurt any of the businesses that are there, but as the landlords start to transition the uses of those buildings, which they're going to do, we need to be sensitive to all the residents there, and we need to have that combination where we have urban areas that are going to have offices and entertainment, restaurants, but it doesn't mean they're an entertainment district. And my big star, please put a huge star, please do not ever call South Howard an entertainment district. That my grassroots neighborhood work came from there. This group I created, Cafe Con Tampa, used to meet at Hugo's, and the whole purpose of it initially was to push back against the bars. And the neighborhood's lost, but I get calls almost every day of angry people. If we had a meeting where we called South Howard an entertainment district, we'd have 500 people here really, really mad. They want the bars shut down. Now, there's some that have been there for a long time, but there's some good actors and bad actors. But they would love to turn it into something like a culinary district where, you've got Burns on one end and you've got crazy party places on the other end. And eventually it's going to transition to something that's not 4 o'clock in the morning partying and throwing stuff all over the place. And that has to go somewhere. I had asked the question, could it go in Drew Park? Drew Park people said no. But we need an outlet for that, but it can't be in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And I remember in the 90s when John Agri sat in front of some of those retail places and was looking to convert them to restaurants, people were looking at how could we activate all along there. There used to be a hardware store there and a dry cleaner and other kinds of uses. But now there's bars that are partying late at night. That's not what the neighborhood's ever signed up for. And it's not like it was there and then people moved in. The neighborhoods were there and then the bars moved in. So we need to really carefully look at that and I think figure out in particular how to solve the South Howard problem, because it's not acceptable the way it is right now. And the last thing I'll say is I forgot what we did with cars, but a lot of the biggest complaints we get in neighborhoods is cars, where people are offering to the public free loud music and the neighborhoods don't want it. The hotel operators in Ybor now, in just the last week or two, have started getting 2-3 stars on TripAdvisors and other places because of the loud music from cars driving by. And you sit there at King Corona or whatever, and it's so, the glass shakes because it's so loud. And that, I think, is an enforcement issue. But even in a place that people think there's a lot of entertainment, we need to somehow stop that. And we have one gentleman who comes here almost every week talking about how the boom music is going by his house. We've got to figure out a solution for that, especially after 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Thank you.
Councilman Citro.
Councilman Carlson, I had said that people perceive that South Howard is an entertainment district. My South Howard was only Tiny Tap, McDinton's, and Chatterbox. That was an entertainment district when I was younger.
My idea of entertainment is a bookstore and good coffee. I'm in a different
My
zone.
guy.
Oh, go ahead.
Captain Owens, I want you to tell these fine council members, how do we stop loud cars with sound? Because I never was able to figure that out, but just maybe writing a ticket, because that's a hard task. But if you have an idea, tell me how we can stop that.
Stop selling speakers. No, it's a difficult challenge, and we're facing it across the city. Obviously, downtown, Channel District, Ybor, Soho, it happens everywhere. We follow them around, we write tickets. It's just one of those things, just seems to be a reoccurring thing, and I'm aware of Mr. Daniels and his issues in his neighborhood. So yeah, we're working on it. It's just not an easy feat to fix when they sell speakers every day.
Every day? Every day?
Councilman Vieira.
Yes, I was going to say, is there anything that we need to do motion-wise to bring this back, or for the next step, I guess?
Yes, Susan Johnson Velez, Legal Department. So I just want to make a couple of comments. So the entertainment districts, again, I know that there's a lot of reference to that. I know there's a couple of areas where there are concentrations of entertainment venues, but currently, the city code does not define any area in particular as an entertainment district. So that's one of the things that we'd like to, again, there's a motion, I believe Councilman Carlson made it. There's an item to come back, it's scheduled to come back to council on your May workshop agenda to discuss establishment of entertainment districts or figure out where would be appropriate in the city. So we would ask you to remove that from your workshop agenda and continue that item to the October workshop that we have suggested to bring back all of these items. And then, right, and then if you all would like to have, certain areas designated as entertainment districts, are you also asking us to, have separate regulations that would govern them and as far as noise or other aspects of these entertainment districts, because there are other jurisdictions in the state that do define, Miami is one area, or the city of Orlando I know has entertainment districts, but they treat those areas differently in certain aspects. So is that something that you would also like us to consider?
Councilman Citro.
And if we are going to go the direction of entertainment districts, we're going to have to define those districts. We're going to have permanent boundaries, because I'd hate to see 4 or 5 years from now a person wanting to open a bar or something, and they say, well, wait a second, across the street they can have it. How come I can't? So those areas are going to have to be very, very strictly defined.
And that's why I wanted to caution against, calling areas entertainment districts right now. The way the Ybor City Historic District is defined, and as council may recall, that's one of the areas where noise is measured on a decibel level. But it's not just the 7th Avenue Strip or, 8th Avenue. It goes all the way north of I-4. It goes well east of 22nd Avenue. So, I mean, we have to be careful about, what terms we're using at this point. And so part of our effort we wanted to include was to figure out where the boundaries are. And I know that we've talked to TPD about having, rather than, a legal description boundary where, we give degrees and things like that, to actually have a graphic representation so that makes it easier for TPD to identify, where the boundaries are, and makes enforcement, enhances enforcement for them.
And I'm so glad you said that, because anything east of 22nd Street will be perceived as residential. Anything north of 10th or Palm will be perceived as residential. So thank you.
So do we have a motion?
That would have to be,
Councilman Carlson?
I was just, the item, I don't remember all the details, but the item that you just referenced, to look at entertainment districts, if we could move it, make a motion to move it to
October 26th,
October
27th.
October 27th to appear
roll
with
it
the
into-
other.
With the other noise, yes.
Other noise.
Correct.
and I'll second that.
To
To
October.
move it to, okay, thank you.
So we have a motion from Councilman Carlson, second from Councilman Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're good?
Was there another motion, or did that cover everything?
I think that's all. We're
Okay.
going to proceed with the plan as Ms. Travis outlined. And then I just also want to remind council that, you know, when we brought forward the prior noise ordinance amendments, I mean, we came to you at a workshop. We then incorporated the recommendations that council approved into an ordinance, which we then brought back to you at another workshop. So there will be ample opportunity for public engagement as we proceed through the process. It won't just be these two public engagement meetings we'll be having in the next couple of months.
Yes, sir.
One more quick question, Kat Mowens. I think I remember from a prior meeting that there were only 2 decibel meters in the police department, and we needed to buy more. Do I remember that correctly?
They've already been purchased. We should have them probably the middle of next month.
Okay, how many did we buy?
6.
6. And do we need more? Is that good?
That's sufficient, because right now all we have is Ybor City.
Okay, that's good news. I think in your public engagement, you ought to make sure that neighborhood leaders know about that too. Thank you so much. That's great news.
If I may, Captain Owens, I'd like
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to thank you for helping Ybor City for all this time, making it a great residential and retail section of our city. Thank you, Captain Owens.
You're welcome.
All right, before we go to item number 50, Councilman Vieira will have to leave after this item. We still have 2 items, 52 and 53. Are we good with 5 council members listening to those last 2 items, or perhaps postponing them to the end of next week's workshop? Because I see there's a May 2nd deadline here. What do you think, Ms. Feely? Do you have both items or just 52?
Abby Feely, Director of Development and Growth Management. We only have item 52, and that does require transmittal to the state for that
Okay.
funding by May 2nd. So I would ask, we have a very brief presentation.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
It's about 8 slides, and
Okay.
we plan to keep it brief.
And what about 53? Is that you, Ms.
53.
Travis?
That's the opportunity zone.
Okay.
Can we just move it without the presentation of 52?
Well, there's no action to be done. It was a
Okay.
presentation to you. Oh, for 53.
Do we need to hear 53 today? Can we postpone it to perhaps the end of next Thursday's workshop?
There's no time certain, but it's been delayed once, and we've had them on hold, but.
Okay.
I mean, it's a matter of just having the consultants come and do the presentation
But
again.
they're online right now?
Yes.
They
Okay,
are
fine.
online, and I don't know if they're available
Okay,
next
no,
week.
that's
so-
fine, that's fine. Okay.
We
Item
were
number-
planning to keep it 10 minutes
That's
max. It was just an overview, and
Okay, item 50 then.
Okay.
We have Marcy Hamilton and Carl Brody. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. Carl Brody from the City Attorney's Office. I'm here to report back to you on the request to provide some options for creating a second chance or ban the box ordinance. What we did in the office was check across the country and check through the state to determine what are the viability of different available ban the box ordinances. What we found was, after doing some internal research first to make sure that we felt comfortable that if we received any challenge to it, that we'd be able to survive that. We felt comfortable with that because we, on a court level, determined that it would be, any challenge would be just have to survive a reasonableness standard, which means we would just have to get enough support, predicate, as they say, to support the decision to have a ban the box ordinance for the city, and that, you know, that the support we have would be sufficient to address the problem, which is what we discussed earlier today when we had the groups up here to discuss the different problems that arise from ex-offenders not being able to find sufficient employment. So we felt comfortable with that. We looked around the state and we saw that really there's several municipalities and other local governments do have provisions Most of them don't have them in their ordinances. A lot of them do them through HR and do them through other manners. But the primary comparables that we found were in Broward County, in Miami Beach, and in Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, yep.
So we saw those three. Each of them provide different enforcement mechanisms, which is the real issue. Enforcement mechanisms for these are either through the RFP process, debarment if a contractor doesn't comply with the requirements of implementing some type of ban-the-box second chance ordinance requirements. We also have penalties where we would, debarment, non-responsive bid. So if part of the bid was, did not include assurance that they were going to comply with the city's ban-the-box requirements, then they would be deemed non-responsive, which means their bid would not go forward. And we also can withhold payment for non-compliance. Separately, if we wanted to include a point system, we could do that, and that would be to add points under the RFP or CCNA process. So those are kind of our options out there in terms of moving forward with some kind of ordinance to further enforce what we already have in place, because we do have some provisions in place, particularly when we talk about the city of Tampa as an employer. We don't, the city of Tampa itself does not do a background check until after a person has been deemed a finalist for the position. So we have that in place. If we want to expand that to require vendors and contractors who we work with to include provisions like that, we can. We just have to determine what options we want to take in terms of implementing it.
Very good. Councilman Goods, Councilman Viera.
I talked to Mr. Bennett on yesterday about this, and you know, I've seen ban in the box a long time, and if you have good people that are making it works. But 9 times out of 10, it usually doesn't work, because as soon as a person comes in, they're asked, and then their application's in the trash, and they never move forward to a final process. That's factual. I've seen it happen plenty of times. But I believe that some of the problem, you're talking about putting this ordinance together and making the mandate for the contractors that we're going to use or possibly use, you got to give them some assurance to go along with that.
Correct.
And because 9 times out of 10, most of those entities, they're being told by their carriers, don't do that. That's where you're going to run into a lot of different issues which we want to help. So I think what Mr. Bennett was talking about, hopefully we can go back and research that to incorporate with that, so where we can be able to look and see where is their insurance policy out there, where's our bond system, to where we can help that contractor, whoever, whatever we're doing, they're going to help us get people employed, to be able to get them employed through the process. So I'm hoping that we can go back and kind of research that, and that way we'll be able to help some of these folks, because that's going to be our challenge. I'm just being honest. That is going to be the big challenge when you're talking about contractors and people want to hire people or put ban in the box on there. What you're going to find is our carrier says no, or we can't do this and that. So I think we've got to also get another step in there to be able, so they can't say no, to say we have an insurance policy or we have a bond policy that you can be able to do that, so they can go through the process.
That's something we can look into. It's I had to say, that's not something the other comparable ordinances provide for.
But that's what I've seen has been the hindrance. So,
no, I get you.
You know what I'm saying? So let's see if we can get that roadblock out of the way somewhat to be able to stop that hindrance.
Councilman Viera.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and thank you for all your hard work. And I came to, I guess it was Chief Bennett and then Brad Baird on this issue maybe 7, 8, 9 months ago on it to begin this process. And we have a really good coalition of people who support these proposals, including the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, the JCC Federation, our friends in the Chamber of Commerce, and Reverend Abraham Ministries that have been doing this for so very long. You know, nationally, we have about 750,000 Americans who are released from incarceration every year, and stats show that about 2/3 of those folks are returning to prison or rearrested within 3 years. So, you know, I think that it's on local governments to do what we can to help address this crisis for our families, for our communities, that results in broken families and violent crime and so many different things. I know Chief Bennett spoke from the heart on the many things that he has done. I know that he's taken steps in this administration to increase recruitment and have a broader picture for returning citizens. So, what I'm going to be motioning for is a few things, which is, number one, I want an ordinance to come back from us, for us, that has contractors given additional points through encouragement to, number one, ban the box. But number two, and I'll leave this to y'all when it comes to the specifics, on a commitment on hiring returning citizens. And I think what's important in that, and I want to specify this, is not, because I spoke to Florida Rights Restoration Coalition on this, and they gave me a very good pointer, which is it's not hiring on the front end, but making sure that they stay with them and verifying that towards the end. So they don't just hire them, then let them go, and it was great. We hired them, now we're going to let them go. Right. We don't want that. Number two is I want something to come back, because I know Chief Bennett's worked on this, and I think it's something that we ought to promote as a city, that we're doing internally, which is to report annually on the number of hired returning citizens by the city of Tampa. And that can be separate, that I don't think that needs to be part of an ordinance, but I think that's very important. Then the third part is not part of an ordinance, but I've been working with County Commissioner Gwen Myers and Hillsborough County Commission on a joint city-county either apprenticeship, and if it's apprenticeship, obviously state certified apprenticeship, or training program for returning citizens. It can either be a grant for a program like Ready for Work, the secular arm of Abraham Ministries. It can be a separate program. Commissioner Myers is seeking, I believe it is about $150,000. I would love for the city to match that.
We've been in contact with them on that.
Yes, sir, and go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've been in contact with at least the county attorney's office on that, so there's some preliminary discussions there. But that was part of your motion. We are definitely moving forward with that.
Thank you.
But it's going to take the coordination between both of us. So
yes, sir. And the reason that I'm doing this as a test pilot by starting by going on first base is that I want to win the confidence of taxpayers on this issue. I want to get this issue into the mainstream 100%. This is not an issue that is left or right. This is an issue that affects all of our families, and we have to give up to the extent that we have it. I've certainly had it in my life, the hypocrisy and the bias against returning citizens. It's ugly, it's un-American, in my opinion, it's un-Christian. So that would be my motion. I don't know, I guess I should separate into a few motions. So first, and may I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. First, I would motion for an ordinance. How long do you all need on that?
I would say 60 days.
Cool, okay.
July 14th, because we have that break period.
Yes, thank you, sir. I would motion that staff come back with a draft ordinance on encouragement of contractors to, number one, hire returning citizens, and number two, to ban the box. On that would be my first motion. And Councilman Good, you talked about the insurance issue.
Yeah.
How would you, I want to incorporate that. That's very critical.
I think Carl knows what I'm doing, because you need to have an insurance policy, because some of these contractors or entities, their carrier might not cover them, but maybe we've had something we can be able to cover them while they do that. So you can incorporate or see how we can do that. I don't know how long that would take you to research their car, but I think that's going to be a key component to keeping them on the job. I'm going to say, okay, we're going to do this, but I'm going to fire you in 2 days or a week, and then you're gone, and then everybody knows about it. So I think that's key.
No, and there's some options we can look into on that end. We have to be careful, because this is providing public funds to a private entity, not for a service, which is different than when they're providing.
I don't think it's provided to them. I think maybe the city has a window to where we say, well, if you're going to participate, you can be a part of that window, and that way, we can separate the two per se versus that entity. So I just think it's something you should look at on both ends.
Feasibility.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
We can look into something like that. And Councilman Vieira, do you have any preferences I know you said you referenced the points initially. Do you want the points to be included as part of the ordinance?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Good.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Just making sure.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So we want to make sure that contractors who ban the box and hire returning citizens, proven at the end, are given incentives and rewarded, that's our starting base with this. I think that's important.
Okay.
So
And that would be part of the RFP process and, yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
Good.
And again, with the feasibility that Councilman Goods put in there incorporated, so we can investigate that in 60 days.
Right, we'll incorporate something.
And that's my first motion. Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarification purposes, do you want this ordinance to be brought back as a draft under staff reports?
For first
Or do you want
reading.
them for first reading
Yes,
consideration?
if that's.
Okay, so
yeah.
legal would need to place it
Mhm.
under first reading consideration.
Yes, ma'am.
First reading consideration, July 14th, regular council meeting. We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira. The
Second.
was from
Good point.
Goods. Yeah,
Um,
Councilmember Goods was.
One other question.
Yes, yes.
And it was a good thought. Do we want to have a certain price threshold? I know that we have, one of the cities has 100,000, one has
Yes.
200,000.
The lower, the better.
The lower the better, so it's 100,000?
Sure.
Okay.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Goods. All in favor? Aye. July 14th, first reading.
And then second, if I may, and I can combine these all, which is number one, motion to have annual reporting by the city, and we can have that to come up.
August 25th.
That's fine. There you go, August 25th, and then every August thereafter. So that, on the number of returning citizens that the city is hiring. So that's my second motion.
Motion from Councilmember Vieira. Do we have a second? Second from Councilman Citro. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And then third, and thank you for that, council, and then third would be to request that the administration appropriate up to $150,000 to match the county's test pilot investment for apprenticeship and/or training program and/or grant for returning citizens. This would be, I believe, the first of its kind here in the local area that is specifically geared towards this population to equip them with the tools that they need to help put food on the table for their families.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilmember Citro. All in favor? Aye.
And if I may I have that come back to us in August?
August
for
25th, under staff reports?
Yes.
Excellent. We have a motion. Yes, sir?
And if y'all will pardon me, I gotta pick up my son, so please excuse me. And thank you, council, and thank you for your work. Thank you.
All right, two more items to go. Item number 52, Abby Feely. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Council. Kayon Henderson, Manager for Housing and Community Development Division. Just coming before you to talk about our LHAP, which is our local housing assistance plan with our state funding. Under administration, have always tried to come before you just with some transparency, so just wanted to talk about the plan that we're getting ready to submit. So as we go to the next, to the second slide, just a little bit about what we'll discuss today is just the background of what that LHAP is, what that purpose is, the funding source that really governs our LHAP, just what those strategies look like, and talk a little bit about the public input that we've been able to get. So our LHAP, very similar to how we have our action plan for our federal dollars, our LHAP is governed with our SHIP dollars, which is the State Housing Initiative Partnership Program. Each municipality has to submit that LHAP. It governs 3 years. Our fiscal year for the SHIP funding is from July 1st to June 30th. And so the LHAP that's being presented to be submitted on May 2nd of this year is going to govern FY23 all the way to FY25. And the LHAP is going to detail really how we plan to spend these funds for the next 3 fiscal years. This is lengthy, but the creation of the LHAP really is the purpose to meet the housing needs for those who are very low, and moderate income household, to expand the production of affordable housing. The state funds are the only funds that we really have that allows us to go up to the 140% area median income. So as we present our LHAP, it's really important for us to really be specific on the programs and the strategies that we create so that we can really address all those from very low all the way to moderate income households. It does increase the availability, for affordable housing rental units, as well as looking at preserving units. And so this is what we would use sometimes for our owner-occupied rehab to preserve those units. We look to do public-private partnership also with our SHIP funding because it has a little bit less restrictions than our federal dollars. So both of our infill programs, infill phase 1 and infill phase 2, we were able to utilize SHIP funds to be able to leverage other dollars. Florida Housing Coalition, that's the agency that governs the SHIP dollars, our state funds. And so I've just listed a few eligible activities. It can be homeownership activities, construction activities, as well as admin. So when we fund the different subrecipients, we want to make sure that we are also putting some admin dollars in. It has homeownership activities, and so once we break that down in our LHAP, it can be anything from foreclosure prevention, and it could also be first-time home buyer program. So it just gives an overview, a very vague overview of what those are right here. When we develop the strategies, we really try to make it a straightforward approach, something that's really easy to read. The strategies are not likely, if we don't put them in the LHAP, we're not likely to be able to fund them for the upcoming year. So as we put the different proposals out and expect for the subrecipients to respond to those, we have to make sure that it's in the LHAP, really spelled out. It puts what the loan term is, if we're going to put a lien on that home, if we've put any funds. It also has to be very specific as what our targeted audience is, what we plan to do, what's the maximum amount of award, and as well as the loan terms for that. The next slide will show just really what we've started to do. So the draft LHAP, we presented that to our Affordable Housing Advisory Council, which is our AHAP committee, on February 16, just to get some input from them. Also, just looking at that draft, we did have 2 public input sessions, in-person meetings. We did one in the morning and we did one in the afternoon, just to make sure that we gave varying times for people to attend. The 30-day comment period started March 17th and closed last week, April 16th. Now we're here just presenting an overall of what the LHAP is, and we will submit that final LHAP to Florida Housing Coalition on May 2nd. And that is it.
Any questions?
Any
Yes, ma'am.
questions?
I'm curious if the home ownership activities for this cycle include the possibility of assistance with the increase in property taxes and those types of things for low-income homeowners?
No, not for property taxes, no.
Okay.
Anybody else?
It's not a strategy that we had looked at in I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it just came up recently as something that people are gonna struggle with, but I know that, well, I mean, I know your plan is already put together, but definitely for a future plan, I think that we're gonna have to look at
And that's something that we can look into with Florida Housing Coalition, just to see if any other municipality has done it. We can certainly amend it once we've submitted it, if that's
Okay,
something.
yeah,
we need to
that, I would love to see like what the feasibility is, because that's what I'm hearing from the community. Those who are on fixed incomes are really, I mean, even though it's only going to be 3%, it's 3%. It's the highest that we've had in recent memory. So some of those people just aren't sure how they're gonna pay for that because they're living on their Social Security and things like that, so. Thanks.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last item of the day, 53.
Thank you, Council. I'm bringing forth today our report on the Opportunity Zone Prospectus and Market Plan. And this portion of it is we've completed the market report, which is happening right before Christmas. We've completed this prospectus, and we're building the website to be a resource for people that are going to invest in our opportunity zones. I have GAI consultants online here. They're going to give you a brief report on that, and then ask for some input about how you feel about some of the ideas about using this tool and how we promote this tool, because that's the third component of our contract, and this is the very last piece. So love to hear your input, and could we get Laura Smith online, please?
Yep, she's on. Go
Wonderful.
ahead.
Thank you.
Hi, Hi, everyone. How are you doing today? Thank y'all so much for hanging on and letting us present to you this afternoon. I know you've had a bit of a day, so we're going to try to go through this in a pretty quick fashion so that we can get through everything. Do I need to share the presentation from my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
All right, just, we'll make it bigger there and we can see it.
Yeah, hang on. I'm going to switch the screen because it's showing you the wrong screen. 2, 3. That's the one I want. Okay, so I'm assuming you all can see the
Yes.
screen that shows the process and deliverables. Okay, so first of all, my name's Laura Smith. I'm with GAI's Community Solutions Group, and I've been leading your market report and Opportunity Zone Prospectus effort, along with Bo Kemp, who's with the Fluent Group, and he was on our team. We were selected in the RFP process to do this work for you all, and we are getting pretty close to the end. So what I wanted to do quickly is sort of walk you through what we've done thus far and where we stand now and what our next steps are. So first of all, this project involves essentially 3 components that all happen in this first stage, which are the market report, the Opportunity Zone Prospectus, and the marketing plan. So the market report we finished several months ago. That was completed back in about November, December. We're wrapping up the Opportunity Zone Prospectus now. This meeting is actually to get some feedback from you all on how that's coming together. And then the marketing plan will be provided to staff to be used as an ongoing tool for implementation and next steps. Oh, why are we not advancing? There we go. So when we look at the areas that you've got in Tampa, we have basically 22 opportunity zones that are in Tampa, but 8 of those fall into these 5 distinct areas. So we've looked at those 5 distinct areas and sort of created a branding for each of them. So you've got the urban core, East Tampa, West Tampa, Drew Park Airport, and then also the university area. And you can kind of see how those lay out on this map here. These are the total of all the zones that fall into those areas. So you see there's several that fall into the East Tampa area. You've got 3 that fall into the urban core area, and 5 up here in the university area, as well as a couple in West Tampa and a couple in Drew Park. So we did a series of stakeholder engagement, which we've been doing since the beginning of the process. And you can see here we worked with community partners. We also looked to fund, investor, and development facilitators. And we also spoke with each of your CRA advisory committees. There were some that we weren't able to directly present to during their regular scheduled meetings. But in those settings, we did still provide them samples and or recordings of the other presentations we did for the other districts. So this is essentially kind of what your market report looks like. We looked at residential, office, retail, and industrial uses. And we specifically focused on each of those 5 areas. So this market report will be updated as part of our original response to your RFP. We did a market report and we'll be updating it 1 year after. So the update to this will come in November of this year, and then you'll have a new set of data to go along with that. So this is one of those tools that you now have that really helps you understand how these different market segments are performing in Tampa, specifically in these few discrete areas, these 5 specific areas, as well as comparing to the city as a whole to understand how they perform in relation to the city as a whole. So when we get into the prospectus, sort of the intro to that section of the product is going to be sort of an overview of what the Opportunity Zone program is, so that people can get an understanding of how that works, especially folks that have never been exposed to it before. And one of the things that we heard a lot from our conversations with the CAC board members and also some of the folks from the public was that they're really looking for how to get the Opportunity Zone program connected to the individual businesses. So not just from the perspective of, building or development or any type of vertical construction, but also how you can connect people that already own businesses in the city and are either looking to expand them or maybe looking to relocate to a different area. We wanted to make sure that we were making that connection for folks, and it was a topic that came up in a lot of our conversations. And we feel like in kind of painting that picture within the prospectus, we can help people understand what that means for them, especially as business owners, if they're not interested in vertical construction. So one of the ways that we've done that is by creating this sort of matrix where we look at the qualified opportunity funds that are available for, that have the funds that you're looking for to invest in opportunity zones, is to look at those and understand how they may align, whether they're a real estate focus, a business investment focus, and which sub-districts of those 5 that we talked about may most align with the specific needs of those specific funds. So that's kind of what you see here. This is included in the prospectus. And hopefully then, if you're in one of these 5 districts, you can come to this and look and say, hey, that fund is interested in exactly what I'm looking to attract an investor to. So the area that I'm in is consistent with what they're interested in investing in. So at least it gives them a first point to reach out to start that process of seeking fund investment. Oops, sorry. So we then introduce each of the sub-districts. So I've given you an example here of the East Tampa sub-district, but there is a similar spread to this for each of those 5 districts that gives you that overview about the individual area, community investment that's been happening in that community, and then also the major anchor development that's there. One of the things that opportunity funds and in general investors tend to look at is, is there already investment activity here? Is the city already committed? Is there a CRA that's already committed in making investments into this community? Because, money sometimes follows money, and those investments make them feel more confident going forward. So that's really what we're highlighting here is that, look, there's already a lot of investment activity happening within these communities on the public side, which really is opening the door to that private sector investment. We also talk about the priority projects that are located within each of these 5 districts. These would be kind of those game-changing projects, really catalytic efforts that are happening within each of these 5 districts. I'm showing the urban core section here just as an example. So you can see how, things like Gasworks and Encore Tampa and the streetcar expansion and modernization are all shown here to highlight the kind of things that are happening that are really going to be influential to that specific district. And there's a similar sort of layout of projects for each of those 5 districts here. So this is what the information that we're including for each of the census tracts. So an opportunity zone is defined by the census tract that it's within. For West Tampa, you've got 2 census tracts that are within that area that are both opportunity zones. So what you get is this sort of overview of, here's everything that's going on in this specific zone, this specific census tract. You also get those socioeconomic and key demographic facts so that you can kind of start to look at this from the investor perspective and say, this census tract is consistent with the things that I'd be looking for as an investor. So if it's the income levels, the education attainment, whether it's that it's a more residential focused community or a more industrial or commercially focused community or area, that's how they're gonna then help narrow those tracks down to identify which one they want to be active in. So separate from that, we also do an investment and redevelopment opportunity index model. What this does is takes a number of factors and models those to identify areas, well, not really areas, specific properties within each of those sub-districts to identify which ones are most ripe for investment or redevelopment. So we look at both already built properties that are underutilized or maybe vacant properties that are undervalued or are already coming to the market. Those get highlighted in these maps, which are broken down by each of those 5 sub-districts as sort of a first point for investors to look at if they're already interested in a specific sub-district. For example, if they were already interested in East Tampa, this kind of gives them an introduction to, hey, here's some properties that are already ripe for redevelopment and investment, just as sort of an intro to the community for them to start thinking about. And so you see here, we've got a sample that's Drew Park. So the next step is the marketing plan. That's what we're essentially finalizing now. So the marketing plan is intended to be essentially a roadmap for staff. So they're going to take that marketing plan and it's going to help them move the Opportunity Zone program forward. So it's going to be what Rob's referring to whenever he's going forward with this to promote the Opportunity Zone program in Tampa, but then also as he works with the many community partners that you all have to further this program for your community. So that includes implementation that's tailored towards housing, commercial and retail, industrial, agricultural uses, and operating investments. So there'll also be something of an investor pitch development that goes along with that, but again, that's really to continue down that path, using it as a roadmap. Another thing we assisted with was the creation of the web tree and web content. So this is all starting to hit your website now. Rob and his team have been building this into your existing web platform so that it can at least start to share the information there to get the word out and start messaging. But ultimately, we're hoping that this becomes a little bit more of an interactive platform so that people can really navigate it in a way that is very quick and easy for them to find. Right now, it's really coming together nicely and it's really starting to take shape. And I look forward to seeing how that continues to progress over the coming weeks. So this is just some of the other web content that we've helped create that's now up on your website. Some pieces of it are already there and fully functional. Others are still being built out. So our next step is to finalize the Opportunity Zone prospectus. We're very close on that. And then also formalize the marketing plan, which we're also very close to the completion of that. So I don't want to take up much of y'all's time. I know that you're probably all having a very long day because y'all have been up there since 9. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or review anything. But we really just want to kind of give you an overview of where we are, that we're getting really close to finishing, and take any feedback or answer any questions that you all might have.
Councilmember Goods.
A good friend of mine, brother, said on the creation of the Opportunity Zone with Senator Scott. And Opportunity Zone is supposed to be utilized for underserved communities, undeveloped communities. When I look at this map, I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to move East Tampa and some of our other marginalized communities with these opportunity zones. How are we going to use the opportunity zones for black businesses to promote them? I see a schematic here, but it ain't telling me how we're going to get the meat and potatoes to get it done. And my thing is, how are we going to market it to the people in those communities to know or to where to go? See, I can put this on a website, but nobody just ain't going to the City of Tampa website to look at this or even know what Opportunity Zone is. I have to be a realistic person on that. So are we looking at boots on the ground to look at some of these businesses that are there, knocking on doors, putting literature there so they can understand what an Opportunity Zone is, what can be offered, how are we going to promote for businesses to come here to look at some of our areas to talk about growth. Now, you've got an Opportunity Zone in the central part where we know we got big developers there who are going to take advantage of that with your gas works and all your other stuff. So that's fine for them because they know all about that. They're the money people. But I look at the marginalized communities to want to know how are we going to help them to help their communities thrive. That's what I need to know.
Those are great questions. Those are the exact kind of questions we get on a regular basis. I get calls 3-4 times a week answering that exact same question. I'm happy to apply. So the idea is that we're not handing out money. We're not doing that kind of work. This is a big education and awareness. And when we have businesses that come in and says, well, okay, I'm not buying real estate, but can I still use this program for other things? For example, if a company says, hey, I'd like to rent the place next door and expand my business, let's say they're a pizza company, and they said, I need to buy a new oven, and I need to expand my business, need more tables, need to hire 2 more employees, and I can expand my business. But if I go to my traditional loan place, they require more equity. You can go to one of the qualified opportunity zone funds and do a Shark Tank moment where you say, hey, I'd like to borrow some money or have you invest in this business. I need ovens, I need these other things. It counts for rent, it counts for the equipment that you're gonna put into that building, you can use it for operational. It's not just for real estate. The early takers did a lot of real estate. They started looking at their performers and said, okay, I can replace some of my investments with opportunity zone investments. Those were the early takers, and that's when the rules were first written, was first in mind. But as the rules got written in 2019, those other options became more small business focused. And so one of the things that we're looking for is to get our partners to get out there and share that information, like the CDCs and the EDCs and, the chambers, to go, hey, these are great tools. This is an educational piece. This printed document is obviously going to outdate because it's printed, but the website was intended to be that dynamic, continue to go on, and any new changes to the rules. The idea is that the properties that the CRAs have bought that we need to advertise and show, this is available for redevelopment. This is a highlight document. This is one of the tools that we should have and say, oh, by the way, did you know we have these opportunity zones? This is a possibility. We are seeing people that are starting to use those funds to buy properties in downtown and buy properties in other areas. Those are the ones that get the newspaper all the time. The ones that you don't see are the people like the small ones that we have here, like Sakari Lux and Ed Rapiki. He has like 3 of them here, and he's investing in some affordable housing. He's looking for smaller lots and trying to do 4 and 10 lots at a time and do those kinds of investments. He's not necessarily doing hey, I need to buy a city block and, put $100 million development on it, and I'm looking for a big cash donor or a cash investor into the zone. So they're looking for all levels, and the idea is that we're trying to share that information and become that tool. And so that's how we're trying to get the boots on the ground, and we're trying to get our partners to be working with us to get that word out. Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, good afternoon again. Nicole Travis, Administrator of Development and Economic Opportunity, and your interim CRA Director. One of the great things I think is a good opportunity for us to do with this prospectus is educate our CRA staff as well. Our CRA staff is in the community. They are meeting with people. They're hearing from businesses. They're hearing from a lot of these smaller businesses with facades grants. And I think educating them about the prospectus and who to be that contact and be that conduit, I think is it's a real opportunity for us to be those boots on the ground and be that connection between the business community that may want to expand or new businesses that may want to come in. So I plan to use this as well to educate the CRA staff and to have them out being boots on the ground as well for our local businesses.
Ms. Travis, how difficult is the funding? Because sometimes you go to certain communities, criteria hurts us at times. So I think that's a key factor. I want that addressed and see how we can help people versus hurt people.
Right. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity for us to maybe partner with consultants that maybe can help with those questions. We are not the professionals that can help with your tax statements and your tax liabilities, but we certainly can partner with other organizations, the CDC, the SBDC, that have consultants and other private consultants that may be able to answer those questions and walk our business owners through the steps so that they understand that this is just not an opportunity zone, here, go figure it out. No, that we connect them with the people that can answer their questions and help them through the process.
Because that's what happens. They don't know about permitting.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know to get in front of us or what to say and what not to say because they don't know to know, and then they lose out. So that's it's a big part of this process, making sure there's someplace they can go to talk about the financial records, to talk about this is what happens when you go to permitting, planning, or you may need to get a lawyer who's a land use person. They don't know those things, and they get shut out because of that.
It is my intention as your interim CRA director to utilize the staff that we have in a project management role, position, so that they can learn, be the connecting party to the business owners that have questions, the residents that have questions, and connecting them through the entire process, not just from concept, but until they get a certificate of occupancy through all the way. So that is my intention, and we'll do that. The same is true with the opportunity zone prospectus.
Well, I see you have Mr. Brown here from the ECD.
Yep. We got Ernest on here.
Ernest is here, so I know Mr. Brown has been out looking in East Tampa, looking at opportunities in areas on Columbus and other areas. So I'm hoping that he'll be able to get some people here with Mr. Conan to look like investing in East Tampa to make sure we can have some folks who are living there, working there as well.
And they've been a part of the process and inclusionary and been giving great feedback and helping us find other partners that we might not have known right off. But again, it was always the intention to include city staff and in general, obviously CRA staff was part of that group. But yes, I'm glad that commitment, because I think it was our intention at the beginning was to give this tool to everybody so we can get those investments. We are seeing a lot more. I'm actually surprised each day when somebody comes up saying, I've invested in this and I'd like to know if somebody else would like to do this. And they're offering lots of interesting information. So we are seeing, I mean, the related group, they mentioned 2 Opportunity Zone funds that they're using to fund part of the project that they mentioned earlier today. We had the old Verizon building downtown, I'm sorry, Frontier building downtown. That became an Opportunity Zone purchase in some of the blocks around there. So we're starting to hear a lot of people starting to invest in things that it's amazing. So these are great stories to share and to try to get other people to invest. So it's exciting. Again, those are the easy ones to point to, trying to get those out to all the other levels. So I agree with what Nicole said, is we need to get everybody singing from the same page.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, thanks everybody for putting this together. I think all the work that's been done is important. This is the thing that I'd like to remind everybody, I've already talked to Nicole about this, is that this is a tool.
It's a tool.
And it makes us equal to other cities. It doesn't necessarily differentiate us. We've got a lot of great things that differentiate us about our community, but if without doing all the work that's been done, it would put us at a disadvantage by not being able to tell people about it. The thing that I would just caution everybody, especially in the marketing of this, is let's not get distracted by the tool and run and chase the tool. Let's focus on real planning for our community. We shouldn't be trying to chase a big real estate project just because we can use this or whatever kind of project. Instead, we should look at what the community wants, what the neighborhoods want, and then go backwards and look at all the tools that are available to achieve what the community wants. And that's where I think the city in the past has had a lack of planning. And the second thing we've had a lack of is real economic development. We've chased real estate development, but not economic development. And I know the 2 gentlemen in the audience understand that, and so does Nicole, and so does Rob. And I think I have confidence that Nicole's going to lead us into an era of real economic development now. And we've really got to look at changing the economic numbers of our city. And we're not going to do it just by offering incentives and using tools. We're going to do it by doing the right kind of planning, looking at the real numbers that underpin our economy, and doing real economic planning and economic development planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, feedback?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We have come to the end of our agenda. Do we have any other new business, or did we cover it all? You sure you want to go this early?
Second.
All right. Motion from Councilmember Goosen, Councilmember Citro, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.